Hi everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of Genre Equality Podcast. I'm Hidzir.
I'm Hardy.
I'm IsaF.
This is our 25th episode, but not just that, it's also our second anniversary.
Yay!
Because if you remember, our first ever episode, January 1st of 2018. And by the time you're hearing this, it will be a brand new year, 2020, of course.
New decade.
A whole new decade, oh my gosh.
New hope.
I mean, we're feeling old. We're children of pretty much the 20th century.
We are.
And I still keep thinking that we're closer to 2000.
Then,
but we're not. We're moving further and further away.
Yeah.
But in the case of the last month of the decade, probably one of the biggest months of genre content, like I think we've ever covered.
Yes, sure.
Most holiday season, December kind of stuff. I mean, like last year you had Spider-Verse and all of that, you know. So there's always a lot of stuff to cover. None more so than this month, because I had a hell of a time trying to put together this rundown.
Yeah.
Trying to squeeze everything together. So because of that, right, we won't be doing pull list for this particular month. It's just a 1 month skip, don't worry. We'll still be recommending, books and comics and stuff next year onwards.
I just started reading one of your police stuff actually.
What is it?
The Children of Virtue and Vengeance.
Children of Blood.
Blood and the second book is Virtue and Vengeance. Blood and
Bone.
Yeah, Blood and Bone.
So you completed the two.
Yeah, I completed the two.
Cool.
Yeah. But those two lah.
So you've done both?
No, I just started.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, maybe you can follow up when you finish.
Because I just finished that like a month ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll be done soon enough. Yeah. I'll be done by next month lah.
That's awesome. And plus we'll be covering the two Star Warses.
There's a lot of Star Wars.
There's a lot of Star Wars. Mandalorian, of course, the most hyped show on TV, I think, in terms of just viewing, the communal water cooler show that we haven't had since Game of Thrones. Baby Yoda memes and all of that. Of course, the Rise of Skywalker, very divisive, just like the Last Jedi. The Expanse has returned. Rick and Morty has returned. The Witcher just debuted. His Dark Materials debuted. But given all of that, right, it says something that the thing that we most want to talk about is Damon Lindelof's Watchmen series on HBO.
Yeah.
It says a lot that, with all those big properties coming out, like my brain is still on Watchmen and how genius it is. And all of that. So I think maybe we'll begin. But a large chunk of the podcast will be dedicated to Watchmen just because there's so much to break down. And we'll begin with Watchmen before we dive into the rest. Because at the very least, we can all agree on Watchmen, whereas the other topics we might have
we are all very divisive on the other topics.
Yeah. So, it is January 1st, 2020. I am uploading the 25th episode of Genre Equality. It is March 2009. I am watching Zack Snyder's film adaptation of Watchmen. I am disappointed. It is September 19, 2017. HBO has just announced the Watchmen adaptation, and I am dubious. It is October 20, 2019. I'm watching the premiere episode of Watchmen. I'm in awe.
He's doing a Dr. Manhattan.
It is December 8, 2019. I'm watching the 8th episode. A god walks into a bar.
Oh my god.
And I come up with the idea for this intro. It is December 24th, 2019, and we are recording a review for Damon Lindelof's Watchmen series on Genre Equality. So, what did you guys think about a property that a lot of people say should not have been adapted in the first place, either into a movie or a series, let alone have a sequel? As we all know, DC themselves have their own sort of sequel called Doomsday Clock, which weirdly enough ended on the same week as the Watchmen series, and the huge gulf in quality really didn't do any favors to Doomsday Clock. Let's not talk about Doomsday Clock.
Okay, I have never read Doomsday Clock, so I wouldn't know.
Doomsday Clock is a it's the 12th issue crossover where Dr. Manhattan comes to the main DC universe. And then plays around with the timeline to see, what's happening, because in his timeline, it's fixed, right? He's omniscient but not omnipotent, right? So he realizes that in the DC universe, the timeline is malleable. So we find out that retconning that he's actually the reason behind Flashpoint, etc., He's just playing around, that kind of thing. So it's a bit lame, lah.
Yeah,
doesn't really have much to say.
Although his face-off with Batman was pretty cool.
He has the face of Batman, a climactic showdown against the Superman, and all of that. So I mean, a lot of fic pop moments, that's great. But as a story, it doesn't quite work. And also because this 12 issue series debuted 3.5 years ago, and the series of delays has just stunted its momentum. Unlike Watchmen, which I think, for better or for worse, a lot of people have agreed or disagreed. But people mostly, I think, the sophisticated viewer love this.
Okay.
You know, I mean, it's hard not to.
It's quite universally liked, lah.
It's hard not to see like those YouTube videos about Watchmen, etc., and not think like, oh, you are racist, that's why you don't like this. It's a bit. I want to like give more nuance to debate, but like when I see like that title, I'm like, oh, I already know why you don't like this. So I'm not clicking lah. Yeah. Okay, but anyways, if you do not know, Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons' Watchmen is universally considered probably one of the greatest comics or graphic novels of all time. Yep. If not the greatest graphic novel of all time.
I had the unique thing of reading the comics after watching the movie. I didn't read the comics before the movie. So
interesting.
That's all. So how I actually enjoyed the movie quite a bit lah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But then when I read the comics, then I realized then I understand why people were so upset lah.
Right.
Or not as entertained as.
So you've read the comics much closer to watching the series.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Because I haven't read it in 15, 18 years.
I think I read it last was 2012. That was the last time I read it.
Okay. Secondary school was the last time I read it. But I mean, it's implanted in my head because it's such a good series, right? The movie, for example, it struck me as like a person who loved the visual of Watchmen, and Damon Lindelof struck me as the person who liked the words of Watchmen. Like one person looked at the pictures and one person actually read it. And that was the difference of the movie and the show. The original series was, among other things, a murder mystery, an alt history commenting on a particular era of Cold War, pre-apocalyptic paranoia, extremely R-rated superhero story, and a deconstruction of superhero comic books.
Yep.
Across the 12 issues, they dismantled, examined, and garishly reassembled every structural and thematic device the medium had been using all the way from the birth of Superman and Batman, right? And what kind of person the book asks would put on colorful tights and a mask to go beat up people in public. How different would the world be if people who got like powers actually existed? Watchmen interrogated everything down to the way individual panels were traditionally laid out. It was a comic book for adults, not just because of the sex and language and excessive graphic violence like your Frank Miller stuff and all that, but because of its themes and the way it questioned the very nature and purpose of stories like this. And I think in the same in the way that Zack Snyder's copy-paste film adaptation underwhelmed, I was very heartened that it landed on Damon Lindelof's lap for this series, because he is a divisive creator of Lost and The Leftovers, but I think that he is more thoughtful than Zack Snyder is, so I had hope. And given his career progression has gotten better from the baby showrunner he was at Lost, and then you saw his growth in Leftovers, and then now, and rather than simply retell the comic story at greater length, Lindelof has taken an enormous swing. He's sidestepped the adaptation altogether and created a sequel set in the same universe as the comic. It is faithful to the events of the comic story, but features only a few characters from it. The setting, present day Tulsa, Oklahoma, is completely different from New York City. So is the show's central theme of white supremacy, where Snyder's focus on the letter of the law with Watchmen caused him to kind of miss the spirit of the thing. Lindelof's disruptive approach comes far closer than you might expect at first, given how many departures he's taken. So I mean, overall, before we get into spoilers, just give your general thoughts. Like, what do you like or dislike about the Watchmen sequel series on HBO?
Well, I felt that this was one of the best written series in a while. Perhaps one of the best shows we had in this decade. I felt. Great casting choices all around. Regina King, who I loved from back in the day, from like Southland and other.
Oh, she goes back all the way to like Boys in the Hood, man.
But because but the most recent thing I can remember was Southland, when she was a cop,
and she won an Emmy for
exactly. What is his name? The husband, what's
Yahya Abdul-Mateen the second. You might remember him from Striking Vipers on Black Mirror, or Aquaman, Black Manta.
Exactly. So he's the Black Manta, right? Yeah. He's great too. And I loved how, and I'm going to use this quite a bit today. I loved how lived in the Watchmen universe feels. In terms of the world building, in terms of everything that like the little habits that people have because of certain things that happen, like the spoiler, I guess, Squid Rain and all that stuff.
Yeah. It's in the first episode.
Exactly.
Sure.
Yeah, that kind of thing lah. Makes people, react differently or, perfectly. And all the characters that are successors of the bygone eras. So, all your cops with the mask and the 7 Cavalry and all these additions gave a lot of this weightiness that I enjoyed throughout this entire series. But I just loved how well written this is. And it kept me glued throughout all the episodes, which I thought would be bored after episode 2 or 3. But yeah, when episode 6 hit, when episode 7 hit, and it just got crazier. It just got crazier, and at the end the payoff was so good. Okay, I loved it.
Yeah. What about you, IsaF?
I'm just gonna echo Hadi here, especially about just the sheer attention to detail.
Yeah, man.
Right? And how everything is so cohesive and comprehensive in the way that it's shot, in the way that the acting plays out, in the way that the script plays out. I mean, it's thoroughly inventive in a way that I feel a lot of other series that we've watched over the last decade, since genre equality has been around, has tried to but failed. Right, when we think of Legion and all of that, or American Gods, for example, right? And Lindelof has done an amazing job, I think, all around with the things that really caught me. I love the way that the pacing never feels dry, right? At any given point in time, and it's very hard to, I think, in this day and age. It's the golden age of TV, right? But still, we are bogged down by, there'll always be a flop episode. There'll always be, moments of time where we are just okay. But I think the medium of it itself was put to full use based upon the subject matter that of the Watchmen itself, right? Yeah. And that worked. How well it works together is mind blowing. And I don't really have anything to complain about. To me, this is clearly, for us, what's our highest rated?
10. Stuff like BoJack Horseman is the most obvious, or Undone more recently.
Undone, yeah.
Which was also a one-season wonder.
Yeah, so for something like this to come at the end of this decade and just kind of blow everything else out of the water is really saying something.
Yeah. A lot of people were saying that the Watchmen series was too political, which was a bizarre complaint. It's almost as if they didn't read Watchmen and how political it was.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think Lindelof kind of successfully takes the comics' larger sociological questions and extrapolates them out into the world that we live now. It isn't the 80s anymore, it's 2019. In Reagan's America, for instance, the thing that seemed on the verge of destroying us was nuclear war, dying under a mushroom cloud. In Donald Trump's America, the existential threat is white nationalist extremism, right? And beyond that, the more casual but pervasive forms of racism, which Lindelof turns into, the 7th Cavalry, a KKK-style movement, whose members wear masks inspired by Rorschach, a bit subverting and perverting his manifesto that was leaked at the end of the comic book for their own means. The Cavalry's terrorist actions have forced the police officers to assume costume identities, right? Like Regina King's Sister Knight or Angela Aber patrols the street in what I can only call a fetish nun outfit, right?
More or less,
and cops dressing like superheroes is an inversion of the plot device from the comics, where masked vigilantes were legally banned in the 70s from Senator Keene's dad, the Keene Act. But it also feels applicable to our world, where movements like Black Lives Matter can create the impression, particularly in minority communities, that the police are already untouchable vigilantes, and it's asking questions about accountability. Where does it start? Where does it end? That Angela herself is black is a complication the series examines early and often, with Lindelof again taking advantage of King's great acting. And before I dive into the big themes and all that, right? I just want to say the obvious things first, before I forget, right? Regina King, Gene Smart, Tim Blake Nelson, Don Johnson, Hong Chow, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II. The fucking entire cast is tremendous. Tremendous. It is. Obvious, doesn't need to be said, but I will forget once I dive into everything else. Just gotta say the music by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross,
insane. It's
outstanding.
Insane.
And not just their score, but the music supervision in terms of song selection and the many layers of themes expressed within the songs picked, from Doris Day's Tunnel of Love, or Claire de Lune on the Moon, or Poor Judd is Dead from Oklahoma, or I Am the Walrus right at the end by the Beatles. Oh my gosh, very good. Damon Lindelof clearly did the work in terms of it's hard to say this. I most recently I went for Singapore Writers Festival, and the opening speech was done by Marlon James.
Okay.
So famous black writer, and somebody asked him the question about appropriation. Do white writers have the right to tackle black stories? And he says that appropriation, we only call it appropriation when the writer or showrunner or creative director or whatever, right, doesn't do the work in understanding. So we only call it out when there is whitewashing, or when like Emma Stone is playing like a Polynesian person, things like that.
No, half Asian person, right? Yeah. So I mean, silly things like that, But he points out that has anyone ever accused David Simon of appropriation on The Wire? Telling a black story? Nobody does. If you do the work, nobody's gonna call you out on it, because if you do the understanding part.
And I think Damon Lindelof did the work.
Yeah.
I think the level of world building and exposition on the show, introducing us to strange yet familiar alternate reality concepts, much in the same way that Alan Moore dunked us into Watchmen without really giving us anything to build on. It's quite genius, because a lot of it is inferential, is deductive.
Yes,
you can see it through the visuals. Like, for example, Vietnam is a state in the US, right? And many more, judging from the many stars on the flag. And Robert Redford has been leading an ultra liberal government movement for the last 30 years post Nixon, which of course leads to reparations for victims of hate crimes, now known as Redfordations.
Watergate didn't happen.
It didn't have to. It didn't have to, yeah. Which leads to radicalization of the right wing and white supremacists, in much the same way that they were radicalized after just 8 years of Obama. So can you imagine how much more radicalized they will be after 30 years?
It's the clapback now.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. We learn why police can wear masks, and what spurned that law into effect, and why vigilantes are now outlawed, which is such a neat twist on, the Watchmen book.
Yep.
We learn why racists wear the Rorschach mask, because their ideology misinterprets Rorschach's manifesto. And we see a neat subversion of America's racism story, as police brutality is used by faceless police to harass a new minority, impoverished white people.
Yeah.
Are some of them in Nixonville, for example, in the, I think, second or third episode, where the police go there, Red Scare, and all of that, and they try to round them up. The way the police handles them is only bound to radicalize them even more, even though the police are sort of justified for doing it. It's interesting because I see things like that in The Shield or The Wire, where white cops go to like black ghettos and they round up everyone, regardless of whether they really are gangsters or they are not. It's kind of what they are doing now also.
It's a retaliation kind of thing.
Correct.
The police suffered a loss, therefore they respond in kind.
The very first scene, I'm not talking about Tulsa, which was a great opening scene, by the way. I'm also talking about the first scene in Modern Day, where the cop in the yellow mask trying to draw his gun. You need you need permission from a higher authority, your superior, whether I can
supervisor,
whether I can draw this gun or not. A guy in a panda mask apparently. And then as that scene was playing, I was like, wow, that's such a great idea. I wish it would be implemented like immediately. The liberal side of me is like, yeah, this is fantastic. And then I instantly see why something like that has an issue. Like he gets shot up, right? I mean, this is just the first scene. It's not really a spoiler. Yeah, and little things like you see the way that technology has not developed in the same way in this world because of the giant squid attack. It's decades behind. There's no internet. They're still using pages and so on. And then like the way they introduce mystery is very intriguing. From like the bizarre clone things growing in a lake. You don't know what the fuck that is.
Well, you find out later.
Two small clues like tomatoes growing on trees, and we learn of Ozymandias' predicament, which is such a prevailing mystery, but it makes total sense in the end. And we all learn this through deduction, visual clues like posters or newspaper headlines like Ozymandias declared dead, lessons in real history like the burning of Black Wall Street, or German propaganda leaflets, being dropped on US soldiers in World War One. Conversations, ancillary materials. The show, even a show which parodies Zack Snyder, to be honest. Much in the same way that Alan Moore's comic within a comic, The Black Freighter, deconstructed comic book storytelling. So I mean, what do you guys think about sort of the many layers of the show that Damon Lindelof has introduced, and what struck out to you the most?
Wow.
Like whether in terms
There's
of
so
like
many.
whether in terms of like filmmaking or whether it's in terms of writing or acting, something lah. Something that stood out to you. Besides the obvious lah.
Yeah. I mean, we can talk about Dr. Manhattan and all that later lah.
Mm-hmm.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, yeah.
But I guess we're the spoiler.
But he's in the show lah. You saw
Yeah,
him
yeah.
in the trailer, Dr. Manhattan.
God damn, episode 6. I think was one of the best episodes.
Yes. It introduced Hooded
It's when she
Justice.
took the nostalgia pills
Yeah.
at one go.
It's the backstory for Hooded Justice lah.
Yeah.
A surprising reveal for his real identity.
He's not a strong man.
It's not a strong man.
He's a black guy.
Spoilers lah.
Spoilers lah.
Yeah. I think that was a terrible spoiler, by the way.
Yeah.
Before we even.
Oh, I thought we were spoiler territory now.
No.
Oh no, sorry, black guy.
Well, I guess we are in spoiler territory now. Like,
Yeah.
like we've
just busted it open.
We've crossed the line in the sand.
Mm-hmm.
But that episode itself you
Mhm.
know, where you have your flashbacks to the past that Angela had to go through to understand her grandfather
Yep.
in a more complete way, and also give us the idea of why the hell did her grandfather do all those things Yeah. It gave us a glimpse at the time of when the Minutemen were established. The complexities of the relationship between like Captain Metropolis and the Hooded Justice, the introduction of Cyclops. You had all this.
James Marsden, right?
James Marsden.
No, different Cyclops. And the Cyclops was actually a real thing.
Yeah.
Okay. What I can't shake is the timeliness of this series.
Timeliness,
The timeliness of it. I don't know. What can I put it to you as? Do you think that this series would have worked like 4 years ago? I don't think it would have been as great.
It might, because I mean it might have been a case of like, you know, when Battlestar Galactica came out like 3 or 4 years after 9/11 as the 9/11 allegory.
Yeah.
If it came out 4 years ago in the midst of Black Lives Matter and when those people being gunned down or and all that, it might have hit too close to home and there might be a huge like this is too soon.
There wasn't enough time for it to breathe.
Yeah,
Okay.
Like, and like the same way BSG did it 4 years later. It's like, okay, now we have some perspective on the issue.
But it really did feel like the timeliness of it. Like, I mean, it could have been, as much as it's an alternate history show, right? Like, it felt like, I mean, it could very well be. I mean, we're sitting here in Singapore, right?
Yeah.
All it really is happening somewhere in the world. It felt like that so much of the time. It felt so believable so much of the time. And that's something that I just can't shake. Like, every episode when I'm done with that, I'm just like, oh my God, like,
This alternate reality is not that far from ours.
it is not that far from ours at all, and it would only have taken like really, really small things to have those things be manifested in our time.
Only we didn't have Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah, fair
and
enough.
like a giant squid dropping on Manhattan lah. But I mean, other than those outlandish sci-fi concepts, it feels like things that could happen, and it's extrapolated very carefully and thoughtfully.
Yes, absolutely.
Like like I think Damon Lindelof gave several interviews where even in the writers' room, like they didn't spend much time writing. Like for example, in the first 3 weeks, he was saying that they were trying to figure out the policy of reparations and how that could actually be implemented. So they were actually like trying to make
They're like
laws.
policy makers.
Yeah. And then like after the first month, he's like, okay guys, we might want to move on to the story. But it's just great filmmaking visually as well.
Yes, absolutely.
It's not just beautiful, but every frame is packed with so much meaning and metaphor and symbolism, just like how Gibbins' panels are jam-packed with meaning and metaphor. Like,
True.
I mean, in the very first episode, in the dinner table scene where Don Johnson's Judd is at Regina King's house, right? And they were singing Oklahoma and all of that. And then the camera pans up to the chandelier, and then it looks at the dinner table is a clock, and of course the clock motif is important, like in Watchmen, as is the new 8 motif which Damon Lindelof invented for the show. But at that clock motif, for example, Don Johnson was sitting at the 11:55 position, 5 minutes to midnight, clearly indicating he's going to die 5 minutes later, which I thought was just very, very good. It's one small example.
It's damn good foreshadowing.
Yeah, and the black and white film that opens the show, depicting a black U.S. Marshal named Bass Reeves, apprehending a corrupt white sheriff. Bass Reeves is a real historical figure, mind you, a real black lawman who had to wear a mask to protect his identity because he was black, right? Like Hooded Justice. This plays nicely into what we learn about, Will Reeves in the show's, as you mentioned, staggering 6th episode. Watchmen is dense without being overbearing.
Yes.
And Angela Aba, who was inspired to become Sister Night by a blaxploitation film called Sister Night.
Yep.
It's interesting because the name Aba is taken from a blaxploitation film called Aba, the First Black Superman. And it's just a nice inversion of like real world things lah. Will Reeves' backstory in a parallel to the Superman mythos, from being shipped off by his parents from a dying world to become the first costume hero. In episode 6 we learn about his origin story. We also learn about the Cyclops mesmerism plot. Kind of mirrors real life pop culture by how mass media made by white people has caused the black community to kind of believe the worst in themselves. To be afraid of their own people, essentially. And it assumes a certain level, I'm going to say this word again, sophistication from the audience if you haven't read the book. And if you have, it also requires a certain amount of imagination. It asks a lot of you, and I can understand why people might be frustrated in the beginning. But I think the rewards by the end are very rich. I think Lindelof has a really good understanding of the comic. Like, for example, how Dr. Manhattan perceives time. Like Jeff Johns in Doomsday Clock, it doesn't get how Dr. Manhattan perceives time.
No.
He is omniscient but not omnipotent. It is determinism, He cannot change the future because that is not the future, that is his past, What has happened will happen is happening. And it's a masterclass of puzzle box storytelling where every piece is presented non-linearly, and it's a thing that Lindelof does in Leftovers and Lost over and over again. But it will eventually fit, just not where you expect it to. Save Me Daughter, for example, is functioning at like peak level here. Like this is Lost without the fat. This is Leftovers without the depression. I mean, you guys have any like other thoughts before we move on?
Well, it's highly recommended. Like, you go and watch this show lah.
Yeah.
It's one of the best shows that are out there right now.
Yeah, I mean, I still think that it takes a certain amount of smarts and work to appreciate the show. It requires a bit of like mental.
Then get smarter,
but it rewards all of that. Like that effort is rewarded, and I feel like sometimes a lot of the shows that we tend to love don't meet those.
I mean, there's zero pandering here. Like every moment was. I mean, if you're a Watchmen fan, every moment is well earned. Every reveal has a great payoff at the end. I don't think there was
there's a point in every
review.
And
there's a point to every review, correct? You know, it's so beautifully well done. Like, it's a near perfect. Well, it's a perfect season.
I mean, I can at the same time.
Also, I think the fact that there's no guarantee for the next season. Like, I mean, the showrunner just said, "I'm doing this one season."
Correct.
Yeah. So you could, from episode 1 to episode 9. There was a very good opening and a good closing. Everything felt very succinctly done.
Lindelof never said this, but I assume he picked 9 episodes because of the 9 panels on every page.
No, I don't know.
I mean, things like that. He's just like a huge fanboy.
But a fanboy who doesn't pander.
We'll talk about pandering a lot later.
I
know why people hate it. I know why people hate it. It's about race, and people don't like that. It makes them uncomfortable, which it should. It's so different from the comic that hardcore fans don't like it. Some hardcore fans don't like it. But really, you should give it a chance because it's an amazingly original take on the Watchmen's world, not on Watchmen. Faithful yet radically original, and very politically relevant, as you all have mentioned already. I don't understand the show being too political as a complaint. That is insane. Watchmen is such a political comic, and just because it's about white supremacists and police accountability, and I think its prevailing theme, more than all of that, is actually intergenerational trauma or legacy. Legacy is the thing, from True and Adrian Veidt to, of course, Will Reeves and Angela, and even right at the end when Angela's adopted son looks at the bust of Sister Night, and then Angela has that like, oh shit, did I pass something on to him? It's
all, he looked at it in awe.
Correct. And extraordinarily enough, I think the show got more creative as it went on. Like the first episode was very creative, and then it went to, for example, like Looking Glasses backstory.
That was a good
all
backstory.
the way to like the black and white, almost Birdman-esque dream sequence, memory sequence of Angela's 6th episode.
And the 7th episode where it continued to her past.
Her history in Vietnam, and then of course the 8th episode tied everything together wonderfully. It was brilliant. I felt like the Looking Glass experience during the Squid Attack was something I've always wanted to see from the comic. You know?
Yeah, like what were the people on the ground feeling?
Yeah, what would the trauma be? How can you reconcile that within yourself?
Well,
it almost felt like a leftover episode of The Leftovers, you know, which is a similar thing, lah. You know, about a trauma that you cannot comprehend, you know, and how do you move past this? The answer is you can't really, lah.
Yeah.
And even little things like how it affects pop culture in a post-Squid world that I never thought of, such as Steven Spielberg making Pale Horse instead of Schindler's List, right?
yeah.
And those support groups and all of that. It's vivid and very imaginative and challenging examination of, you know, morality, theology, trauma, and this, to quote Senator Key, the quid pro quo between choosing one evil over another.
Yeah.
It's really good, guys. It's amazing. If I think Damon Lindelof has succeeded in asking fascinating questions and nailing emotional beats, which a lot of some of his stuff like Prometheus or the last season of Lost asks fascinating questions and present interesting narrative things, but doesn't nail emotional beats. And then you go over to The Leftovers, which is just emotional beats, you know, and all along it offers a lot of striking thematic resonance, accidentally, politically, theologically, sociologically, racially. And then, in the end, as with all Damon Lindelof shows, it's like, surprise, bitches, it's a love story.
Yeah.
It's a time travel love story.
It is a time travel love story.
Like, I mean, if you've seen Lost, it will remind you a lot of the Desmond Penny love story, which he pretty much copied beat for beat here, and just like kind of adapted it a bit for a new context. And The Leftovers did something similar, which I was spoiled.
Thing,
Yeah. And I think, like, you know, just watching Damon Lindelof grow has been great. And if you are not watching the show because Lost ended badly, or The Leftovers was too esoteric for you, you know, or you didn't like Prometheus, just give this one a shot,
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely. How would you guys rate it in the end?
I want to give it a 9.5 now.
Okay.
I'm gonna give it a 10.
I'm giving it a 10 as well, you know. Just because, I mean, it's such a good mind-bending, time-trippy, politically relevant show, you know, and just examining America's legacy alongside, you know, these characters' legacy, all the little things they did, you know, like poisonous nostalgia, which is what the show essentially is, like, you know, kind of celebrating Watchmen while also deconstructing it as well. Without unfairly altering it also, I think, you know, all the Hooded Justice stuff, I think, could be extrapolated from canon. This is kind of a meta-textual deconstruction of superhero myth-making and why people watch superhero shows, you know. And it's great, lah. This is almost a perfect comic book show. I think it's a perfect comic book show and just a perfect show in general. One of the best of the year, one of the best of the decade.
I'm just minusing 0.5 because I had to wait every week for one episode.
Yeah, but don't you think that if you had binged it would be too much?
Yeah, I think so too.
No,
Because,
but
like,
then I could have spread it out my own. I like the control.
Okay.
Oh, right. So you want to spread it out yourself?
That's the only thing.
I needed a break after every
I
two-ish
did.
episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to kind of let things sink in.
Yeah, because I feel like you get to listen to the podcast, read the think pieces, Google about Tulsa, Oklahoma, the burning of Black Wall Street. Google about German propaganda leaflets. You know, it's educational and informational. You know, like an adult.
But the one thing that I have to say, the only reason I knew about Tulsa was because of Crack.com.
Oh,
the article like 6 years ago. When I was a big Crack fan.
Yes,
that was one of the things that they raised, like massacres that happened that are not reported.
So I watch a lot of reaction channels for, you know, shows I like. You know, it's almost like watching with your friends, and they're watching it for the first time sometimes, right? Yeah. So a lot of the white reactors, like, I know they will Google it later and find out later, but the initial impression of Tulsa, Oklahoma was like it was an alternate history thing invented for the show. I mean, of course, like if you're thinking this is an alternate history show,
I mean, it was covered up really.
They've never heard of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and they're like, oh, you know, the KKK using airplanes to bomb something. That doesn't sound real.
It was the only time that airplanes were used in
first time ever that Americans saw was attacked by airplanes. I mean, this is way before Pearl Harbor, for example, right? Yeah. I might dock it a bit because they just never revealed who Loop Man is.
Oh,
well, we knew. Yeah, they did.
It's Pete. It's Agent Pete, of course you do. You know, and I love
Spoiler.
I love the ambiguous ending. A lot of people didn't. But I
Yeah.
think Watchmen, the comic, ended ambiguously too. You didn't know what the world would end up being.
Yep.
You didn't know whether Rorschach's manifesto, how that would be received, whether it
Well,
was
now we do.
leaked. You know, now we know
Now we
that.
know.
But I think it would have been false if it didn't have an ambiguous ending. If you really wanted to be Watchmen, you need to have like, what comes next? We
Yeah
don't
lah.
know, you know.
We don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Did she become the new Dr. Manhattan?
Yeah,
That kind of thing lah.
It's
We
got
don't know.
not just only black, but a black woman now. You know? Also, if you don't read PTpedia, you should. On HBO's website, there's this thing called PTpedia run by Agent Pete. And it is a bit like Watchmen's ancillary materials that you read after, you have newspaper clippings,
Yeah.
the interview with Adrian Veidt, stuff like that, or the biography of Hollis Mason, the first night hour and stuff like that. So that gives you contextual clues
Yep.
and information into the world of Watchmen. PTpedia does the same thing for this updated version, So in PTpedia, it is almost confirmed that Pete is Loop Man because he has this fascination. No man, you just go read, and then you figure out why he is Loop Man, And then the other small things that
And
I
I
love.
like that was a real stunt.
Yeah, it was a
That
practical
slide
stunt.
into the hole was a real stunt.
He literally just looped himself
And
and
slid
he
into the
slid
hole.
into a
sewer.
manhole, a sewer. That's fucking insane. I thought that was CG or something.
Yeah,
you
it
know?
wasn't. What
It's
the
just a
fuck?
guy, a skinny guy who just like.
Skinny enough guy, yeah.
So you could be Loop Man if
Yeah.
you wanted to.
Well, definitely not me.
Yeah.
Wow.
So interesting things that you might find out from PTpedia. I just want to say fun facts. Johnny Cochran helped pass the Reparations Act.
That makes sense.
He wasn't busy with O.J. Simpson in this world.
I'm guessing OJ didn't murder anyone in this world.
Maybe not. Who knows? Superhero movies are now blaxploitation cinema in terms of like blaxploitation cinema is like the MCU of those movies. It's the
Okay.
most famous, commercially successful kind
Makes
of
sense though.
genre. Then it dives into what happened after the giant squid destroyed NYC.
Hmm.
I really loved the tourism ad that they did in Looking Glass's origin episode.
Yeah.
Where they had like the Sopranos guy eating squid and like
Yeah.
come back to New York. Yeah. Thought it was really funny lah.
When he was the ad agency guy, he was doing the what do you call it? Crowd testing. When you have a people
focus group.
That's the word. Yes.
Yeah, but it is crowd testing.
Yeah.
You're right.
The focus group lah.
Yeah, and then, because
They hate it.
a mirror guy
Mirror guy.
is looking glass. Sign me up for Tim Blake Nelson's ASMR because I was just obsessed with everything he said.
Yeah.
Even little things, every single sentence he said, I was like, oh, that sounds so good. Tim Blake Nelson's ASMR, where he just whispers into my ear
Can.
to
I'm
help me
down.
fall asleep.
I'm done.
Yeah.
That'll be amazing.
I'll pay for that app.
Or I would have like Looking Glasses cover of Old Town Road.
Yeah.
I got horses in the back.
That's not.
Can you just imagine his voice
I
doing
can.
it? Yeah.
But let's not.
That's not. So that's it. 9.5.
9.5.
Right? 10. Yeah. So
It's
very
near
high,
perfect lah.
very highly recommended show.
Yeah.
One of the highest recommended shows we've ever done, to be honest. Okay, next up. Let's talk about before we dive into something like The Rise of Skywalker, which is let's talk about something else lah, like a Star Wars adjacent that
do
came
good
before Rise of Skywalker, The Mandalorian, that we all can kind of agree upon.
That we like.
Like besides introducing of course the cutest puppet ever created in Baby Yoda, Disney Plus's first live action series is this gunslinging exploration of the seedy, gritty, morally questionable side of Star Wars' outlaw frontier. It's the Boba Fett show we've always wanted,
This is the first Star Wars live action TV series.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. And it's set after the fall of the Empire, which is very interesting.
5 years after the Battle of Yavin.
Yes, and it owes a lot more to dusty westerns like The Man with No Name, or The Magnificent Seven, which episode 4 is kind of a direct homage of. Then sleek sci-fi or big space opera, which is what Star Wars has kind of become known for. And The Mandalorian follows the adventures of an unnamed bounty hunter as he traverses the galaxy's criminal fringes.
We just call him Mando for the ease.
We just call him Mando, right? It's directed by several visionary directors: Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni,
Deborah Chow,
Rick Fumiyawa, Dope, Taika Waititi, among others. It stars Pedro Pascal as the titular Mando. Giancarlo
Christopher
Esposito.
Yost is one of the writers.
Correct, yeah. And then, Giancarlo Esposito, Gus Fring is in it.
Yep.
Carl Weathers is in it. Ming-Na Wen is in it. Gina Carano is in it, Bill Burr is in it,
Nick Nolte is in
Werner Herzog.
Werner Herzog.
Oh man, we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
The only reason he was in this, right, was so that he could get money to do his independent project. That's the only reason he agreed to be on The Mandalorian.
So, but he ended up loving it as
He
well.
did,
You know,
he did.
he's kind of like gushing over it. He's never seen any Star Wars,
He
but
has never.
he loved The Mandalorian, and he
Because of I feel it's because also of the
he likes the practicalness of the effects and everything.
and the throwback to spaghetti westerns,
Mm-hmm.
to Kurosawa films, you know, to
which were based on spaghetti westerns.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Spaghetti westerns,
Yeah.
Correct.
I don't know whether this guest star will mean a lot to you, but to
Mhm.
us it did. Do you remember episode 5 when they went back to Tatooine?
Mm-hmm.
And Baby Yoda was handled by a mechanic,
Yeah, isn't that
Amy Sedaris.
Amy Sedaris?
So I didn't
no makeup.
I didn't realize who it was.
Neither did I.
But when I closed my eyes and I heard her handling a baby, I was like, "Oh, that's Princess Caroline."
Yeah.
I was like, because I had just seen BoJack Horseman like a month
Yeah.
ago, and then she was handling that baby,
Correct.
the baby porcupine. I was like, "Oh, this is Princess Caroline? Is
Yeah.
that Princess Caroline?"
And when she was talking, I was like, I know this voice so well,
Yeah.
Exactly.
but I don't recognize who this is.
Yeah.
That's
And then when
like-
she picked up baby and then she started doing baby things, like, oh my god, it's Princess Caroline.
So when the credits at the end rolled, then guest starring, then Mimi Sedaris, I was like, oh my god,
yeah.
Princess Caroline.
Yeah, and the show as a whole, right? I adore westerns. Are one of my favorite genres. Yeah,
It's a very underrated genre in this day and age.
day and age for sure. Yeah, it has a keen sense of the genre's tones and tropes.
Mhm.
I also miss the old school standalone adventure format of the pre-Prestige TV era, which the show does so well. Every episode is almost every episode is its own thing, with a beginning, middle, and end, which forces each episode to be good and complete.
Yes.
Which is, I mean, think about some of the worst serialized storytelling like Daredevil or Jessica Jones and things
Yeah.
like that. Like, not every episode needs to end on a cliffhanger, you know, or not. It doesn't have to be a 13-hour movie, you know. It's episodic because you know why? It's television.
Yeah lah.
It's made up of episodes.
Yeah, watch
You
The
know?
Wire, damn it.
I mean, goddamn Jessica Jones, which a show that was made to be episodic, focus on like one story over 13 episodes. It's so frustrating. So that's why I really love this. I push back again. There are some people who complain that the show is made up of filler episodes because it chooses not to be serialized. That's ridiculous.
There's not filler episodes. Are you
It's
kidding?
a TV show.
Yeah.
It's trying to be a TV show.
Yeah, and every episode has a very good core fundamental story to it.
Right.
Yeah.
So think about it in this way, right? The most recent, we haven't seen the last episode, but I've
Haven't
seen
yet.
7 of 8 lah. So I
Yeah,
think it's
yeah.
enough to render a
I mean,
judgment, right?
Yeah, 8 is a continuation of 7.
Correct. Yeah. So we're recording this on Christmas Eve.
Mm.
So think about on episode 7, it ends on a cliffhanger, right?
Yeah.
How much more impactful was that when you had resolution, then one episode, no resolution.
To be continued.
I was like, whoa!
Exactly.
You know, that's how I used to, like, you were fucking lucky if one of every 8 episodes of the X-Files had a like connected to the ongoing story. You know?
Yeah.
It's just like once in a while, one out of 4 episodes of Buffy
Yeah,
will
yeah.
connect to the ongoing story.
Yeah.
Resolution, no resolution. This is special.
Yeah.
You know, so I kind of miss that lah. That's the fucking format I like.
But I mean, it's not that much of a surprise if you look at it. That Dave Filoni was one of the guys in it lah.
Clone Wars, Rebels.
Yeah, Clone Wars, Rebels, and
Yeah.
Resistance all have episodic also,
Yeah,
and only have like a few episodes where there are 3-4 story arcs, 3-4 episode arcs and all that lah.
yeah.
Yeah. If not, it'll be episodic too.
I mean, I think a lot of the kids who grew up on peak TV, like post Breaking Bad or post Sopranos, where you know all some of them can do it well, of course, like Breaking Bad.
Like Vince
Wait,
McGilligan.
Which itself also were kind of episodic actually if you think about it. There is the train heist episode. There is
Yeah.
I can name like the train heist episode, you know what episode
Yeah,
it is.
yeah.
I cannot tell you an episode of Daredevil. And then you'll be like, I'm not sure whether there's episode 6 or 7.
It's
or
one of those in between. I can tell you the season.
Yeah, I can tell you the
I can
season.
tell you the season.
You know. The show we just reviewed, Watchmen, it was sort of episodic too. I can tell
Yeah.
you Looking Glass's backstory, you know immediately.
Yeah.
You know.
Episode 6 is very clear.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know, episode 7, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I really like that it's brisk and it's compact, action packed. You know.
Mm-hmm.
I really kind of like this show for its simplicity.
Me too.
Yeah. So I'm gonna turn it over to you guys because I have spoken.
He has spoken.
Yeah. Let me just stay. Okay. First of all, The Mandalorian is beautifully rendered lah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. The music by Ludwig Göransson.
Göransson, yeah, Black Panther,
Black
etc.,
Panther,
yeah.
Childish Gambino's
Yeah.
executive producer. I mean for his albums and all
Yep.
that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is the only reason it was in a Star Wars film was because of his link with Childish Gambino, and through certain things. Yeah. So anyway, and every episode he does it differently a bit, where there are new elements to be the mood of that episode, lah.
Yeah, I mean the heist episode had a heist
its
episode
heist
feel.
episode feel,
The Western
the music.
episodes were just pure Western.
Yeah, you know,
And when Giancarlo Esposito showed up, there was a like underlying trap beat
like a
to
very
it. It was
Imperial March-ish kind of
yeah,
music, lah,
it's
you know?
interesting. It was
It
interesting.
was, right? Yeah, so he did it every single episode. So I can't wait to see how this concludes, lah.
Yeah.
Baby Yoda is a meme now, so everybody knows that
Yeah.
Baby Yoda appears. We're calling it Baby Yoda not because he's
actually
a Yoda. I mean, it's not because he's really Yoda.
Yoda,
It's
yes.
because for simplicity and
Yeah.
convenience.
And they've established
Yes.
that he's not.
The three of us know
Yeah.
he is not Yoda's clone.
Yeah, but we don't know the species of Yoda.
Yeah,
so.
George Lucas famously never named the species to give it that mystery, lah. Anyway, so there's a great pairing, wolf and a cub kind of
Lone Wolf and Cub.
Mm.
Yeah.
lone wolf
Yeah.
kind of feel, lah. You know, between the Mandalorian, and I think
It's a
that
famous Western trope also.
yeah, where you have the protector and the
Yeah.
The
And
dependent,
The samurai or the Japanese movies and the Western movies sort of borrow from each other to
Yeah,
the
yeah.
point where they're almost interchangeable. The
Though
tropes.
Kurosawa like sued a bunch of like Western producers lah
Wow.
over time lah.
Considering how much he ripped off also, right?
Yeah.
Must be weird.
Everybody ripped off from one another lah back then.
Yeah.
But you could tell that there was a lot of homages to this kind of like spaghetti westerns, to Kurosawa films, to heist movies, which
Which we'll be
because we
talking about again
we
later.
watched Rick and Morty.
Yeah, yeah.
Because of that Rick and Morty episode, I could pull out all the tropes that were happening.
Oh, Mando, you son of a bitch. I'm in.
That one really that moment. Excuse me.
Okay, we'll save that for later.
Yeah.
But yes.
No, also in episode 7 was when Gina Carano actually said those words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, oh,
I mean,
I just wish he had said, you son of a bitch.
but that was
in.
and that was a semi heist, you know,
Yeah.
because it's a trick. What it was
Yeah,
a trick
it
play
was a
that they
trick
were
play.
trying to do.
Yeah.
So anyway, brilliantly done because each director brought a little of their own vision in. Like Deborah Chow's episode 3, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, that was
The
brilliant.
super action packed episodes. And the last episode
Yeah.
was Deborah Chow also.
Yeah, the last one, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wasn't that Rick for your
Rick Filmuyawa?
Yeah, I can't pronounce his
No,
name.
that was the heist episode.
Heist
Yeah.
episode was him.
Yeah.
All three did appear as X-Wing pilots, just saying.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. That was interesting. And I always enjoy Star Wars creations when Dave Filoni is in it, lah.
course.
He's like a stand-in for George Lucas, lah. So George Lucas, we know,
Not
is no
even
longer.
understanding, like he's the man. in
He
my
is the guy,
opinion.
lah. Yeah. He's the right-hand man of George Lucas back in the day,
Yeah.
and now he's a law master of everything. And I feel that the Mandalorian really benefited from him being around, lah.
It's the first time the live action world has taken him seriously. Lah.
Yeah,
He's kind of been relegated to that
animation.
corner.
Yeah.
But
Which
he's
he has
done such
done
a good job.
Yeah.
two good series in Rebels and in the Clone Wars.
It's weird that for a franchise as divisive as Star Wars has become, right?
Yeah.
Like you can find a single figure in it that is as universally beloved by everyone as Dave
Dave
Filoni
Filoni
is. You
the
know,
one, yeah.
he could easily have been a Kevin Feige of this universe. and-
Honestly, he should have.
exactly right.
Yeah, then we have avoided a lot of the pratfalls that happen in Star Wars.
Yeah.
correct.
But
If
the
only- if only lah.
but the Mandalorian brought back a certain sense of adventure
Yes.
that
cool. It felt cool.
it felt cool. Yeah,
I never felt that way for Star Wars since like I was a child. You know?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is cool.
yeah. I mean, last time was like when you had Darth Maul. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the introduction of
the
the
introduction of
dual
Darth
sabers
Maul,
and
that
all
kind of thing,
Yeah,
lah.
cool.
Absolutely.
lah.
But it's cool, lah. That one.
I was just geeking out whenever he got a new piece of armor. I'm just like, damn, that Beskar steel,
The
man.
Beskar steel. It saved his life a lot.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right?
I like that he's also not an all-powerful
Or OP,
Mandalorian. You know,
No,
not
no,
OP.
yeah. He's
The
not
guy
like,
takes a lot of shots.
It's
not
competitive,
Django.
lah.
Yeah,
He's obviously a good fighter.
He is.
He can hold his own. He
Yeah.
barely beats his opponents.
barely.
But it makes it competitive, lah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like also the exploration of certain things like Mandalorian culture.
I love that. That's really
We've
good.
already established the Mandalorian culture in the Clone Wars and in Rebels.
Yeah.
But here we finally realized what has happened now. What happened when the people become a diaspora. So the Mandalorians become a culture rather than, you have to be born on the planet Mandalore.
Yeah.
Now they accept,
Foundlings.
Orphans,
and-
orphans and foundlings and all that stuff. So there's a good insight to the Mandalorian culture, which a lot of fans have always wondered, lah.
Yeah.
Because Boba Fett is famously not a Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Jango Fett was famously also not a Mandalorian.
Yeah.
But
At least by ethnicity, lah. they were Mandalorian in culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, with that time a lot more racist Mandalorians lah. But now they can't be racist anymore.
Yeah, they need as many of them as they can get.
Yeah. So it's little hints like that lah. Little hints like the purge that happened. The how they are no longer as feared. Because you realize no one fears the Mandalorian.
No lah.
No.
They were almost wiped out.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like when one of the characters said that if they were such good warriors, then why all of them dead?
Yeah.
That kind of thing lah. But again, the relationship between the Mandalorian and his compatriots, and especially with Baby Yoda, I feel this series has some legs lah. I really want to see them go on to the merry adventures lah. And where else it can go, because look, there's like another 25 years before The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
What are the adventures that they're going to get up in?
Do you think it will go that long?
I don't know lah. But what I would like is that not to link the series to any of the new movies lah.
Except maybe tangentially lah.
Yeah, like really tangentially, like far off, like because the galaxy is huge. There's thousands of worlds. There's it's space.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to be linked to the Skywalkers. You don't have to be linked to the Jedi's. You don't have to be linked to the Resistance. You can do whatever you want. Explore certain parts of the world that has never been explored, which I felt this series has done lah.
Yes,
we have never explored this part of the Star Wars lore.
Yeah. I mean, what about you, Isa?
I mean, I agree with pretty much everything that Hadi has said. It's fun.
Yeah, it's a fun
Star Wars
show.
hasn't felt fun
Yeah.
in a long ass time.
Yeah.
Like my favorite piece of Star Wars was the heist one that they did. What's the name? Fuck, I can't remember.
The prisoner?
Rogue One, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Rogue One.
Rogue One, and that was not fun at all. It was great, but it wasn't fun.
Yeah.
Right, and I feel like you kind of like rediscovered that with the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
I do want to see more of it for sure, but I also think at the same time that Baby Yoda, his identity and his purpose, to other people at least, is too big of a MacGuffin to carry on for too much longer. Right, so we'll see on the 27th, right? Whether or not that actually kind of ties things up. But I would be totally down for like a season 2 for that.
Definitely.
As well.
This can easily do 3 to 4 seasons.
Yeah.
And then
for
just
sure.
end it.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
I mean, like very brisk 8-episode seasons.
Yeah.
Half of them are actually standalone adventures.
Yeah.
And
I don't mind.
They have one mini long story in.
Well, I mean, it's fascinating because then that's exactly what Filoni did with Rebels.
Yep.
Right? So you had your standalone episodes and then your greater arcs and all of that.
AKA TV storytelling.
Yeah, exactly.
Things that have been done since the dawn of TV. Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see. Like I am thoroughly enjoying it. I do feel sometimes it feels a bit awkward between director changes, maybe, in terms of pacing. But that might be just me, and like because I binged most of it at a go, right? Yeah, but other than that, like very little to complain about. And most importantly, it's fun and it's cool and like it appeals to the child in me that fell in love with Star Wars. And I think that's something that we have not seen anywhere else.
Oh, I just have to add. Wow, also the importance to detail that they have. Like the Mandalorian's like pistol, for example, that he uses, right? Is this rare like Dutch pistol from back in the 1800s where they just retrofitted it just to look a bit more blustery.
Yeah.
But like the core of it is like this semi-automatic pistol for back the early 1900s or late 1800s, that kind of thing.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I think to conclude, I guess. I think the production of this show is handsome. It's one of the most lavishly produced shows I've seen. And Disney has all the money in the world to do this.
Yep.
I like the briskness of the episodes, usually coming in about half an hour or 40 minutes, It doesn't have to be an hour long or anything, It is however long the story needs it to be. The action is cinematic. The music, as you mentioned, by Ludwig Göransson, always the highlight of nearly every episode. It's not particularly deep or smart or revolutionary, but it is an impeccable genre exercise.
Yes, it is.
The show is single-handedly made Star Wars cool again. I'm giving this a 7.5 out of 10.
I'll give it an 8.
Okay.
I'm gonna give it 7.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, like, all recommended here in universal agreement, unlike the next topic, which is Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, once again directed by J.J. Abrams, who has, in my opinion, ruined not one but 2 franchises I love in Star Trek and Star Wars.
Oh, don't say it.
I mean, Let's start with the guy who has good things to say first. Let's go with Hadi first.
Okay, so I enjoyed this film.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it tremendously.
Yep.
There were emotional beats that I felt worked for me.
As the end of a long-running 9-episode saga.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of things that I felt for Star Wars, I felt again that I might not have felt for The Last Jedi or Force Awakens, but I felt for this movie lah. The journey of Kylo Ren and Rey for me was beautifully managed at the end of it, and I enjoyed every. Even though I knew that it is J.J. Abrams fanboying himself and pandering and reading like Reddit threads online and all that and just making it reality, it was still good to see lah. It was nice to see certain things from the expanded universe being brought over again. This already started since The Force Awakens, where J.J. Abrams brought a lot of expanded universe stuff back into canon, which is nice. So things like the Force healing, which has been for the longest time pushed over into Legends, brought back recently by The Mandalorian, and
3 days before
3 days before Rise of Skywalker. Even though the change of schedule was because of the Rise of Skywalker, not because we have to introduce these things before you watch Rise of Skywalker.
You know, Disney knows what they're doing.
Yeah. So it's like a good coincidence, lah.
Yeah.
Force healing was one of the things, the ability of I enjoyed it because of the pandering. I enjoyed it because the emotional beats got me. It hit me lah. When spoiler alert, I guess. Do I have to spoiler?
No, don't spoil this one.
Well, when someone had to go.
Yeah.
Well, in real life, she died.
Oh, Carrie Fisher. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So she has to pass away in this one.
Yeah, it's only logical.
Yeah. So when, for example, when Leia was to pass away, that hit me really hard. I remembered Carrie Fisher, from back in the day, when I was 8, 9, and 10, when I watched the original trilogy 2-3 years before the prequels. So I understood the impact, and that got me, it felt like an end. It felt like a very definitive end to this part of Star Wars, and I'm glad that it's over,
Oh, I'm glad it's over.
Yeah, I'm glad that.
Too,
that
we all can agree on that.
Yeah, the waiting is done. This is what the new Disney movies are like. We can move on from here. You know.
Okay.
But it just brought back so much nostalgia. It brought back so much memories of waiting in line to see the Phantom Menace. Reading the comics, reading the expanded universe stuff and all that. Yeah, all that tied into this movie, I felt, for me. Okay. So a lot of it, and I think I'm the first to admit that a lot of why I like this movie is because I'm a fanboy. And it's less objective than other people's reaction to this movie.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it is not. I'm very sure this is one of the least objective reviews I have. That The Rise of Skywalker is majorly flawed in terms of writing, in terms of pacing, in terms of a multitude of things.
Storytelling, that's what you're saying.
Yeah. Story. But somehow
you like moments, but you didn't like how the story was put together.
Yeah.
Okay.
There were clear rush jobs. There was clear retconning from Last Jedi and all that stuff. But in the end, I still enjoyed it.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about you, Isa?
Oh man, where do we even begin? Rise of Skywalker feels to me like the final season of Game of Thrones.
Yes, yeah. Coming in the same year, it really feels similar.
Yeah, right? And it's largely because it is a reactive film. I feel like Abrams felt the dire, desperate need to kind of redo what Rian Johnson did. And I don't think that was necessary. No. I think there could have been a compromise. And the vagueness of it all would have worked to Disney's benefit into the future. And because they were just basically trying... so for Game of Thrones, we knew exactly where it's going to end, right? More or less.
Yeah.
And they had to hit all the plot points to kind of get there. But in this case, I think as viewers, we walk into Rise of Skywalker and we're just like, okay, we know that he doesn't like what happened in the last movie. We have no idea what his endpoint is going to be like, but we know he's going to like charge straight towards that. And that is basically the reason why it is the mess that it is, right? It's sloppy. It's convenient. It's... I mean, it has its moments. I think the lightsaber fight that Rey and Kylo have in the water, right?
Yeah.
That is one of the most amazing lightsaber fights I've ever seen.
Yeah, it had this gritty, realistic nature rather than the gymnastic. I'm sorry to use the wrestling term, spot fest that some of the previous fights have been.
Yeah, especially
absolutely,
episode 3.
right?
Yeah,
And the fact that both of them aren't particularly like well trained or anything of the sort. I mean, Rey is both of them are incredibly powerful with the Force, right? But
technique is not there.
their technique is not there.
Yeah.
They're just like brooting their way through the entire
I mean, there
sequence.
hasn't been a special master in lightsabering for like
Yeah.
since
I love
eons,
that
right?
That
Yeah.
moment. The moment I loved the most from this movie was when Rey got winded.
Yeah.
In that particular fight, and then she just started swinging with no technique. And I thought that's
Absolutely.
that's realistic, right?
Yeah.
you're tired.
You're tired,
That's exactly that. And like that entire sequence for me was like, okay, like I'm gonna cut this movie some slack just for that alone, right? Kind of like in the same way I cut Aquaman a bit of slack for that in
One sequence where he dived down
into the
piranha
like that kind of
dimensions,
like made it for me. That and like the few moments where Adam Driver got to be himself,
Mm.
right near the end, like those moments were classic. Those moments were like so incredibly funny, even though it was such a small thing. And I feel that if that was the only reason they casted Adam Driver, just so that after 3 freaking movies, right, we would get those reactions. I'm okay. Like his shrug.
The way he shrugged. Oh, that shrug was so good.
It's so good. I mean, like, so there were good things, but it was just surrounded by so much problematic, shortcut kind of like storytelling things. Character arcs weren't explored, things weren't explained. And I mean, like, it's a sad way to end a trilogy, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think say what you want about The Last Jedi. It was challenging and risky, lah.
Yeah.
Rian Johnson strikes me as one of those like true filmmakers with an original vision or something new.
Mm-hmm.
Most people seem to think that he didn't quite pull it off, but hey, at least he tried, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
On the flip side, like I think episode 9, as was episode 7. Well, it kind of lowest common denominator fan service pandering, and I gave J.J. Abrams the benefit of the doubt with Force Awakens because it was the first movie returning to your universe.
So you want to reintroduce these sort of things again,
Clearly, you had to take the nostalgia boxes because if you wanted to do it, this is the time to do it, and then from that on, I thought the new trilogy would forge its own path, which is why Rian Johnson tried to do that, and J.J. Abrams, like the Star Wars nerd that he is, undid all that because he reacted the same way every other Star Wars fan did, because they dared subvert our beloved tropes, and then he read Wikipedia and he scrolled through Reddit threads, and then he proceeded to make a checklist of everything fans wanted, and then just lazily crafted a story around these moments. The result is, I think, a really, like you said, a disappointing end to a legendary saga that lacks originality and thought. It's so poorly paced that it feels both rushed and too long at the same time.
Yes, exactly.
None of the emotional beats are really given time to land because whenever something major happens, you immediately move on. The story is just a series of MacGuffins. We got to get that do that leads us to that other do that leads us to that other do that, and then in the end, that do that doesn't matter. On the flip side, it's superficially entertaining, I think. The action set pieces are quite breathtaking.
They are, yeah.
I like the explanation for why stormtroopers are incompetent because they are NS men, essentially, something we've always theorized.
Yeah.
They are conscripted,
Conscripted,
right?
yeah.
I like the colourful alien festival that they introduced in the first act.
That was pretty dope. I don't think we've actually seen that much, like a deep dive of culture, except in The Mandalorian.
Except in The Mandalorian, yeah. The colourful alien festival was great. Like, I wanted to, party there.
Yeah. I wanted to know a bit more about what was going on. Yeah.
I really adore Babu Freak, who I think is like the star of this movie.
He got a bit of a Malay accent.
Yeah. I'm just I think Lando Calrissian's smooth player pimp characterization is so wonderfully consistent across all the movies.
I love it.
He was the best part of Solo as well.
Yes,
a movie that we all were mediocre on. I kind of like Carrie Russell as Zori, even though she was underused.
I mean, the quipping was great, but other than that, it wasn't really much.
But yeah, that's about it. I can't really get over how uninspired or convoluted the plot was. It's dialogue wise, it's so badly written.
Yep.
As it was character wise, I think.
Yep.
they reintroduced. This is the first scene, and you saw it in the trailer, so it's not a spoiler. They reintroduced Palpatine, which is a big deal.
Yep.
He came back to life off screen.
Yeah.
Why not show this major thing, important thing on screen?
Yeah.
And maybe leave the dudette chasing to the crawl text.
Yeah.
We had to find this knife to find that thing. Write it for me in your PowerPoint slide lah.
Yeah.
I don't need to watch it. How Palpatine came back to like, oh wow, that sounds interesting. Maybe you want to show that or anything like that lah.
That's because no one has the answers to how that actually works, you see.
Conjurers and soothsayers, like offhanded lines like that. It's like, oh yeah, okay, that explains it.
Yeah.
Then why not remove one of the MacGuffin hunts and give
for sure.
Finn or Poe something actual? I know they do things. I'm talking about emotional things to do.
I was especially annoyed with Poe's arc.
Yeah.
This time around, because I feel like in The Last Jedi, right, there was an opportunity for him to step up, and I thought that this movie would be where we see that, but we do not. He is still incredibly annoying.
Yeah,
Right.
and Finn
Well, he
too.
did kind of step up.
Yeah, because
Sort of lah.
He had no choice. Leia died.
Yeah.
yeah, but I mean
That's
like,
how he stepped out.
Yeah, there's a void in,
yeah, in the leadership thing, and he has to inherit that. But like
And he was
what was the general who was
chosen.
giving him shit?
Holdo.
Yeah.
The last one.
Yeah, and those were some really great moments where they talk about, leading, and they're talking about war, and they're talking about that.
I like that.
None
It's
of
called the
them
Holdo maneuver.
Yeah, none of that comes to fruition at all, and it's such a waste.
Or Finn, who was introduced so many interesting things, like he's in love with Rey, he's the first stormtrooper to defect, things like that. They just like quite never
He
pay
had
off.
that small little moment with the horseback lady.
With the other stormtrooper, so even that was like, I mean, you've got
It wasn't
so
expanded
much.
Yeah. Then you can things that you can do, like expand on the morality of like needlessly killing stormtroopers.
Yeah.
Like, if I turn good, why can't they? Maybe they should be rehabilitated. Maybe they're not the villains that they are. But yeah, sure, it's not Steven Universe, so I get that.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah. But my main issue was the lack of an emotional arc for Finn and Poe lah.
Pin.
Correct lah.
Yeah.
Like, there's a ship name, I guess.
Yeah, it is.
Give them something to do. And for a film whose climax ate so much from Avengers Endgame, from the on your left moment to the I am Iron Man moment, the difference in Feige's payoff and J.J. Abrams' payoff is startling. There is a way to do fan service well, I realized, because Endgame showed it.
Yep.
You could have done all these beats and still made it good.
Yep.
And the MCU, I think it's a comparable sized franchise with as much money and expectation riding
Absolutely.
on it. So
Though with even more movies.
yeah, so like the excuse that like, oh, this is too much pressure, like doesn't hold true, because I've seen like another franchise with just as much pressure and money
In a
do
lot
it,
less
like-
time.
Yeah. The Rise of Skywalker's biggest twist or reveal undid Rian Johnson's most interesting take on Star Wars, and the most interesting thing Star Wars has done in ages. This egalitarian take on Rey, which is honestly the most refreshing thing they've done.
Yep.
Johnson went above and beyond to show us that you don't need to be from some great family
You're
or
not really a
lineage
Skywalker.
to make a difference.
Yeah.
You can just be any girl or any boy out there. If you try, you can make a difference. That final scene in The Last Jedi where that little kid used the Force to pick up a broom, right? You know, such a beautiful moment and it kind of heralded this new direction for Star Wars. And JJ was like, nope, let's do nostalgia.
Fuck that shit.
Yeah.
No, and I'm okay. Like, let's take that in comparison to the Mandalorian, who isn't actually Mandalorian, who is a foundling, right? And is making something of himself and having an impact on the greater Star Wars world with his adventures, right? And like all of that is what makes the Mandalorian so
You see, I agree
good.
with all these things that you're saying. I still love the film.
All right.
Yeah.
So I mean, how would you rate it, Adi?
6.5 lah.
6.5. Okay, out. And IsaF?
I'm gonna give it a 5,
Alright.
just for how epic some of the action sequences were.
I know what Hidzir is gonna give.
I'm giving it a 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, I raised it up from an initial
From a what?
3.
3, right?
Yeah, so I liked it more the second time
Yeah.
at least, Okay, let's move on to
See,
our...
even though I loved it, it's still 6.5.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you
That's
still
how much I
recommend.
love it.
Yeah, I still recommend it.
Fair enough. Let's move on to a show that we all love. Let's unite again.
Let's unite one more time.
Let's heal some fractures.
Yeah, come together in your loudest and belter loudest. We are here to discuss the Expanse. 1 year after its birth,
Your belter talk not bad.
because now Amazon Prime they got like the subtitles, right?
Yeah, I
And
can
I'm picking
see.
up so much
Belter.
easier,
Belter
yeah.
Creole.
Yeah.
It's so good. Yeah,
Okay.
like 1 year after it was cancelled, bafflingly, right?
Yeah.
Amazon revived the Expanse for a glorious 4th season. And
what a fourth season it has been.
remains one of the densest, richest, most rewarding, and most scientifically accurate.
Hard sci-fi, man.
Hard sci-fi and a very politically potent sci-fi as
Love
well.
it.
Series on air. It has not a bigger budget, but it has the same budget, but
But
spread out
less
over
episode.
less episodes, 10 episodes now. A new platform with a different distribution model. You can binge it all at once if you choose to. But very much the same show. Picking up immediately after the events of the third season finale.
Yep.
After the opening of the ring gate, there's a land rush, so to speak, for the newly discovered planets on the other side. In particular, our Rocinante crew find themselves on a new planet called New Terra or Illis,
Yep.
depending on where you come from.
We'll call it New Terra if you're the settlers.
Mhm.
Illis if you're the mining corporation.
Correct, yeah.
Oh, no, it's the other way around.
Or is it the other way around?
Yeah, New Terra is Earthers
Oh,
and Martians call it.
correct,
Yeah.
correct, yeah.
So they become, as they always do, they become embroiled in the conflict over who owns the land. There are Belter refugees desperate to make it their new home after a long history of poverty and oppression. Also a mining company from Earth seeking to mine its lithium resources. Considering that the first 3 seasons of The Expanse are largely concerned with ideas of how class structures and oppressive politics perpetuate even in the furthest reaches of space, right?
Yeah.
You can already tell that this is going to be a sort of ugly, morally ambiguous anti-colonialism allegory. And the crew once again finds themselves in the middle of a conflict that threatens to become the epicenter of something much, much bigger than this small political squabble. Especially when it seems like the planet itself might be alive and the protein molecules seem to have an agenda of its own. And the struggle over this new planet is a clear metaphor for exploration and colonization that's occurred throughout Earth's history. Illis is like the Wild West, isn't it?
Yes, that's what I was just going to
It's
say.
an speaking of westerns, right?
Yeah,
It's an
you had a bit of that. Yeah.
unsettled land, and that's fair game for anyone ruthless enough to take it, no matter how many downtrodden immigrants they have to roll over and possess.
Yeah.
It's a very compelling story. What do you guys think about season 4 of The Expanse?
It continues its form.
Yeah.
I feel The Expanse continues its form. Again, we are trust in the Rocinante and the love for the crew we have grown with for the past 3 years.
Yeah.
Holden has become this character of less Jesus-like, more practical. He was always very savior-like in the past few seasons.
I think especially for season 1 and season 2, right? Like we had this idea like he's in control, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
But ever since Miller's gotten into his head, right? He's just fumbling around.
Yeah,
he's fucking
he's
up all the time.
confused.
And I love it.
Yeah.
I love the fact that he had absolutely no idea what is going on.
Yeah.
But the whole all of humanity sees him as some sort of
A
like,
lot of the
superhero.
things that happened this season is his fault.
Yeah, exactly. I love it.
Right. We carry on with characters like Naomi, who had a good arc.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
We had Amos, who had really good arc.
Oh my god, Amos
Right?
was a fantastic arc this
Right.
season. Yeah.
And you had also what's his name? The driver. Okay, driver didn't have much of an arc. Alex
Alex was okay.
Alex was a lot on the ship most of the time.
Bobby was great.
Bobby's arc
was
was interesting, right?
Bobby's arc was
Bobby's
great.
arc, in the Mars underground and all that stuff that you never really explored.
Yeah, which was
The
nice.
no durian signs and all that happened.
Avasrala's
Everstralla's
arc is incredible.
re-election arc is interesting. So all these things all freaking tied into the finale lah. Yeah, so I liked how they weaved all these stories which at the beginning were really far away. Like Everstralla on Earth, Rocinante on New Terra or Illis, and you had Bobby on Mars. And actually you had also the Belters lah with their own insurrections that were happening within them.
Within the OPA.
Within the OPA.
I mean, they have struck a truce, but some of them more hardcore.
Dude, why are you doing this?
I guess the real OPA?
Yeah,
if
the
you're
real
gonna compare them
it's
to
like the
IRA.
IRA,
Yeah.
and the real IRA,
Yeah.
the ones that would not take shit from the Earth or Mars. So how all these very, very disconnected storylines actually slowly just kind of tied in to the finale.
They're very slowly introducing what I've been told is the series' most compelling villain, Marcos Inaros.
Yeah.
And he hasn't really even interacted with Rocinante yet, and the way they introduce him is very cool. Yeah.
And his relationship with Naomi.
That's also extremely
That is interesting
I
to
want to
see.
see how that plays out.
Also,
the son looks
Naomi,
cool.
son very old. How young was she when he had the
I
son?
don't know. But then again, relativity.
Yeah. True. Yeah. But all in all, I felt that each episode was just kept me going. Like, okay, I need to watch what's happening next.
Yeah.
You know what's happening next. And it's not as heavy as Watchmen, where you need to take a break after 2-3 episodes.
It's
right?
okay for binging.
Yeah, this is one of those.
Actually, I do enjoy binging it more than the original way
Yeah,
of
yeah.
weekly. I feel like it lends itself to binging a bit more.
Yeah, I think it was structured that way. Anyway, by the end of it, I was like, I just went, whoa, that
Yeah.
really happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the cliffhanger at the end, you're like, oh, what? No, why you stop now? Why you stop? It stopped at the most cliffhangers of cliffhangers. But again, that's how beautifully done the Expanse was, lah.
Yeah.
Season 4 it's a great continuation of a series that we have loved for the past 3 years, lah.
Definitely. Yeah, I think the focus on a frontier-like environment like Illis kind of changes the feel of the series a bit.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of it is grounded this season, like
Yeah.
debates in the UN, a gangster story in Mars, a frontier story on a planet. You know, and,
Things you've never seen before.
yeah, usually only the OPA storyline takes place in space.
Yes.
Yes.
You know, so it has a very
No choice.
it has a very, for lack of a better term, grounded feel to it,
Yeah.
it literally and metaphorically. But at the heart of it all, there's like new themes of like the hubris of colonization, you know, and the entitlement that makes people think that they can take whatever they find. A desperation that forces the oppressed to make a similar gambit, and over time, it's hard. A lot of characters do things that are considered what could be considered noble in the moment. You know, everybody understands why they do. You know, what I understand why the Belters do what they do. I understand why Murtry did what he did. Murtry is presented as a villain, but there is a show where he could be a hero.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I don't think he overreacted a bit, but I understand why he's coming from, considering, you know, that his theory that his ship was bombed
Yeah.
turned out to be true.
Yeah.
Like, who wouldn't react that way, right?
Yeah, that
especially if you're a security officer.
I think I believe I
You
could
lost like
excuse
half
him.
your crew.
Yeah.
I could excuse him all the way to the point where Amos confronts him and calls him out for his shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think this season is like a more polished, updated version of Battlestar Galactica.
Ooh,
wow.
It's all about the impossible choices in impossible situations and whether the ends justify the means, and if the means are righteous and good. You know,
It's very Western, right?
Yeah.
Also.
I mean, BSG season 3, for example, had a storyline where the president, during a re-election campaign, did a lot of questionable things that make us question her integrity.
Yeah.
And also they settled on a new planet, which becomes this crucible for humanity and morality and civilization. You know, it really feels a lot like this, lah. And you know, I really love the separate storyline with, like you mentioned, post-military Bobby Draper, kind of eking out a living on Mars, and makes some surprising choices to do so, because she's always been this very straight shooter character, full of integrity and honor, might be willing to bend in morally murky circumstances, but how much will she be willing to bend?
Yeah.
It's a very character-driven subplot, actually, with almost no ties up until the end to the Rocinante crew.
Yeah.
And kind of witnessing this disillusionment of a patriot is fascinating. And it allows us to explore Mars more than we've ever done before.
Yeah.
Avasarala Shore Agadashlu, now the Secretary General of the UN. She's so good.
Oh my god. It's such a great.
I think she remains like so entertaining as she struggles with political office, because she's always had this curt and impatient demeanor. She's a bit of a curmudgeon. How that won't play well in political office, obviously. Will she learn to play the political game, and more importantly, will the game corrupt her? That's kind of her story this season. And the new Amazon platform allows her character to curse so much more than she ever has.
I love it.
It
makes more sense
for a character like that, right? And all of this deepens and enlarges the world of the Expanse, lah.
It does.
And you know, just to echo Wes Chatham's performance at Amos,
Yeah.
low key blew me away this season, man.
Right?
One of the best
So
arcs,
good.
because you know, he starts out as this archetypal sci-fi character, the stoic, violent anti-hero with unseen depths. You know, I've
And
seen
like
that so many
very
times before.
simple, not much complexity.
Oh,
to
he's the
him.
muscle lah.
Yeah.
The muscle, yeah.
And the show unravels those depths,
Oh, I
and
love
Amos
it.
becomes
It's
very
so good.
compelling. Like,
I mean, they have been doing it, lah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he did. I mean, there was a lot of that in season 3,
Yeah.
but this time round, it's like
They
this
just
next level.
make him complex as fuck.
I mean, it's different because like this season there is not to spoil anything, but there is
spoil
a
us.
couple of episodes where a spurt of blindness forces Amos to confront a childhood trauma,
Yep.
and to see Amos vulnerable and or afraid in a very Amosian way, but
Yeah.
he's still vulnerable and afraid.
It
lah.
is, yeah.
It's amazing and surprising,
Yes.
you know,
it is.
because I've never seen Amos react that way to anything. He's always so unflappable, and he was so flat, you know, in that situation. It kind of humanizes him in a way that I haven't seen before.
I like how they got the cure for the blindness, by the way.
Yeah.
That was genius.
But okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I was reading an interview with the actor, and he was saying that he went to therapy just to understand,
the
the
character.
trauma of the character. It's quite good.
Yeah. Clearly an abused child. But then, like, just as you see in Amos humanized, you know, the show is very quick to remind you in
He's
the final episode, like one crazed look in his eye and a bloodied smile, that he is a fucking monster too.
But he just
I
he looked
love
at
it.
him.
Thank you.
I
Yeah.
was like, fuck lah.
Oh my god.
Well, you're fucked.
So I follow Adam Savage from Mythbusters. He has his own channel called Tested.
He had the thing with the
He cameoed in season 3 as well.
he did.
Adam Savage, as one of the OPA guys.
Wait, I remember this. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Correct, yeah. So he interviewed
The
Wes.
prop guy, right?
Yes, and he interviewed Wes Chatham as well.
Oh shit, he did.
And Wes said that final scene. If you've seen the show, you know what I'm talking about. You know where him and Mercury have one final confrontation.
Thank you.
And that scene, apparently the two actors got so into it that he was punched for real.
Oh.
And that bloody mouth was real. He didn't realize it at the time. And it's so amazing because I felt it. I felt the tension and like the crazed look on his face. Is like, oh, you motherfucker.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
You should have
And
punched
then
him.
like the look, or the actor who played Mercury, the look of fear in his eyes is like,
That was real too.
what the fuck did I do?
Ah.
Yeah, it's really great. Like the show, the acting across the board is
Mercury.
very, very good.
I'm Mercury. I remember him from what's that fucking show? Kaiju.
Pacific Rim.
Pacific Rim. He's one of the doctors, right?
Yeah. I think like throughout all the characters fans have gotten to know over the past 3 seasons, they remain consistent.
They do.
But they come out against new challenges, so you see more facets
they
of
adapt.
them. And it's this balance of weaving not only the large and small issues of characters, but also how storylines impact each other,
Yeah.
either politically
Yeah.
or sci-fi.
Sci-fi.
In major and minor ways that it continues to make the Expanse so exciting. It's
It
an
does.
exciting show.
Yeah.
You know, there are a lot of shows that are like smart and fascinating, but like for pure like adrenaline, like, oh shit, I gotta see what happens next.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
Expanse ranks
Especially
right
now.
up there, lah. Yeah.
God damn.
I mean, like concluding thoughts. You guys have any?
If you haven't watched The Expanse, now is the best time to catch up.
Yeah.
It's all on Amazon.
Yeah,
All
there's
on
4
Amazon.
freaking seasons. Go and just watch everything.
Everything's there.
Yeah.
It's binge-worthy.
Yeah.
There's very little to complain about. Okay, I will say this. I think Miller as a plot device in Holden's head has been a bit problematic for me this season.
They got rid of it.
Well,
Yeah.
they got rid of
So
it.
they got... But like how it played out during this season just felt a bit too convenient for my liking. But other than that, I
Fucking
think the
Miller.
farewell was great. I think the introduction of Dr. Okoye is interesting as well.
New character.
And I did enjoy the fact that we actually have a scientist who's good. After 3 freaking seasons, right? Like we
I
have
mean,
a
good scientists are boring, see.
yeah, but she's pretty fascinating. Like she brings a moral kind of like standard to the table that I
Yeah.
think is very different from what we've had so far in 3 seasons. Yeah.
Yeah, there are always these evil not evil, but
yeah.
rather scientists who push the envelope too much.
Yeah.
Until they become villains.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
just reminds me of like a scientist that genuinely wants to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
and
And
it's,
she did.
it's stuck in an impossible situation, and she's just
Yeah.
trying to muddle her way through. I think they kind of just watched Annihilation and saw Natalie Portman's characters. Like,
Yeah.
let's have one of those.
Yeah, one of those, yeah.
That.
Yeah. I can't wait for like Bobby's storyline to kind of coalesce.
Yes.
From what
Yeah.
I've been told, is a novella. Her subplot this season is from a novella that is separate, but the novella ties into the Rocinante storyline. I mean, we figure out at the end how it does.
I really like it when Bobby's with the crew.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she plays one very, very well.
But they connected her to Avasarala at the end also. They also
Yeah.
play very well off each other,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
But Eversrala is no longer UN Secretary General.
Spoiler alert lah. But
Spoiler
yeah,
alert
lah. Yeah.
Well, so how?
I don't know.
I
you
don't
know.
know.
Exactly.
We'll
Now that's
see,
why you have to
we'll
watch.
That allows her to, I guess, have more freedom of movement lah.
Yeah.
Within the story, she can go to past the ringgit if she wants to. You know.
Maybe. I mean, like...
Considering like Nancy Gao, I like how they presented Nancy Gao.
Yes, I
Me
really
too.
actually.
Nancy Gao wasn't presented as a villain.
Wasn't.
She had like cogent points. She made it like
She wasn't
succinctly.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And compellingly, and she didn't do any dirty tactics.
That one thing that Everstrola did was dirty. The one when she revealed that like
Nancy
Yeah,
Gao's
Nancy was-
lottery placement, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
and how
I mean,
she
out of
countered that was freaking brilliant.
But I love the fact that they put, despite the fact that they didn't vilify her rather. I like the fact that she's still presented as an opportunist, as a politician should very well be.
Yeah.
Because the moment she hears the news, right, she just flips it
Yeah.
to her benefit, and I really like that. I hope she features a bit more.
As the Secretary General of the UN, she should lah.
She should.
Yeah.
So we'll see how.
I mean,
it
we
goes.
didn't see much of Mars leadership this season.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But it's still kind of like this monolithic thing that's fracturing apart. But we'll see. We'll see.
Right, yeah. I'm giving this an 8.5 out of 10.
Same 8.5.
Yep, I'm gonna go with 8.5.
Alright.
See, universally liked.
Universally liked across all ringgits
Yeah.
and 1,300 systems.
Whenever you say ringgit, I keep hearing ringgit. Like,
Ringgit, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are different currency over in A-list lah.
Yeah.
they use the ringgit.
Yeah, we have 3 times more. Anyway, let's take a break. We're going to take a smoke break before we continue, but you obviously won't realize
That's
this.
why.
Yeah.
Why you tell them?
I don't know. Maybe I'll play like some music now.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can go have a break too. Yeah.
But in a while, we'll be talking about other things.
Like The Witcher, Rick and Morty, a lot of things.
Alright, see
Please
you in a
stay
bit.
tuned. Please stay tuned. And we are back from our break, guys. I needed to catch my breath there. We talked a lot. Watchmen was like a 40-minute discussion.
Yeah, man.
You know, and of course the rise of Skywalker and Mandalorian deserved merited like long discussions as
Yeah,
well.
exactly.
We're gonna kind of quickly breeze through the next few topics.
Yeah.
There have been 2 lavish fantasy series that have been adapted. One on HBO and BBC, and one on Netflix. We'll talk about His Dark Materials first, which is an adaptation of Philip Pullman's acclaimed trilogy. Kind of considered a modern masterpiece of imaginative fiction for kids.
Yeah.
The first series follows Lyra Belacqua, aka Daphne Keane from Logan X-23.
X-23.
You'll probably know her as
Yeah.
X-23. A seemingly ordinary but brave young woman from another world. Lyra's search for a kidnapped friend uncovers a sinister plot involving stolen children, and it becomes a quest to understand a mysterious phenomenon called dust. She journeys through the worlds, including our own. Lyra meets a determined and courageous boy called Will. Together they encounter extraordinary beings and dangerous secrets, with the fate of both the living and the dead in their hands. This star-studded cast has James McAvoy as Lord Asriel, Ruth
Lin-Manuel
Wilson.
Miranda.
Yeah, Lin-Manuel Miranda as Lee Scoresby, Ruth Wilson as Mrs. Coulter. You may remember Ruth from Luther. Clark Peters as the Master of Jordan College. You may know him from The Wire.
Yeah.
Freeman. Yeah. I think for those disappointed by the atrocious film adaptation,
That was an atrocious film.
it
adaptation.
was. Yeah, I'm glad to see that this kind of ambitious, very lavishly shot,
Kinda
very
work.
gorgeously produced series is a better adaptation of The Golden Compass
Yeah.
specifically. His Dark Materials is very beautiful. It kind of captures the strangeness and childlike wonder of the books. It has really good acting, alongside kind of this lofty themes about power and faith. You know, as a person who is an atheist and kind of distrusts any sort of religious institutionalism, you know, His Dark Materials is sort of written and made for a guy like me,
Yeah.
who is like, all these like various religious organizations are like full of shit. They're oppressing people and all of that. So I mean, that's kind of the themes of this book. While not as thought-provoking or imaginative as some of the other titles that we've covered this month, this has been pretty solid. It's very buoyed by fantastic visuals. Whenever it gets draggy or slow, you can just look at the screen and be like, whoa,
Yeah.
this looks really good. It has a dynamite cast, gorgeously produced fantasy epic, and I like that it's for all ages.
Yeah.
Unlike the next one we're talking about, this is definitely for kids. It's kind of dragged by a slow start in the first, I think, 2 or 3 episodes, which may lose some viewers, but episode 4 almost feels like a mini reboot, like it's a pilot for a new show. So episode 4 onwards is quite riveting. It really ramps up towards the end to a really great finale, a very exciting finale. And it kind of became one of my low-key weekly pleasures lah. Not a great show by any means, but I kind of enjoyed. I ended up enjoying it and looking forward to it every Monday.
Okay.
And yeah, this is a 6 out of 10 for me.
Not bad.
Yep, not
Alright.
bad. Yeah. Next up, let's talk about another famous fantasy adaptation based on a popular video game franchise and a series of books by Polish author.
But this series is based on the books.
Based on the books.
Yeah.
Andreas Sapkowski. Andreas Sapkowski.
I'm not gonna attempt that.
The Witcher is Netflix's latest entry into the fantasy genre after The Dark Crystal, Age of Resistance.
Yeah.
It stars Henry Cavill as monster hunter Geralt of Rivia, and it's kind of this pseudo medieval fantasy that plays like a magical monster of the week procedural, like a Law and Order monster victims unit,
Something like that.
monster hunting unit.
Something like that. Yeah. Like Ghost Hunters, you know.
Yeah. Crossed with the grim violence, visual scale, and wanton nudity of Game of Thrones, for example.
Okay. Yeah.
Is it any good? I'm gonna turn it over to Hadi, who's seen the entire show.
I finished it.
Yeah, and IsaF has seen half of the series, and
Yeah.
I've seen one episode.
You've seen one episode.
So I think for a person with the most well-rounded context of the show, I mean, kick it off.
Alright. So The Witcher itself, I had a lot of concern when it first came out, just because I played the games. I didn't read the books.
Okay.
I've never seen the novels until just recently,
Yeah.
but I've never read it. I think IsaF has read the books, or some of it.
Just the first
Just the first one.
Just the
Yeah.
first one.
So this takes place according to the novel timeline.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's
So
right.
this is like way before the games.
Yeah.
The Witcher, in terms of production, you can see that there was money
There's
that
a lot
that
of
was
money.
thrown here, you know. The monsters are really well made, well designed. Geralt and his Witcher abilities are kind of fleshed out quite well. The Witcher suffers a bit in the first few episodes, I feel, just because of Geralt's. It's just very confusing at the beginning, trying to like figure out what is happening.
I wasn't confused. I just didn't like what I was seeing. But continue. Yeah.
I was confused just because of the timeline issues.
Oh, the game as
Yeah.
a game player.
No, but because there are 3 separate timelines in the series itself.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so there's one timeline that's taking place way into the future, one that's taking place like 30 years before, you know, that sort of thing.
I
So
understand, yeah.
all of that kind of like, you kind of figured it out as the series continues,
Yeah.
especially the midpoint onwards. Then okay, I know what's happening now. In terms of the world building, I thought it was relatively well done. There was a lot of great little tidbits, you know, throughout the entire season, where they introduced a lot of little nuggets of information about the world that we're living in, you know, about the magic, mages, elves, other sentient beings that are seen as second-class citizens to the humans, you know, the very, very tropey kind of fantasy stuff. Yeah. However, one of the issues I had with The Witcher was a lot of the dialogue felt very game cutscene kind of like.
I've seen better dialogue in game cutscenes, to be honest.
Yeah, okay, that also
Yeah.
To be
you know?
fair, in The Witcher 3, like the game
Not the
dialogue
game,
is amazing.
It's amazing, yeah. So, but
But no, it feels like it was written by George Lucas. Because it has this amazing world, visually rich. He knows all these like complex like hierarchies of like, you know, the structure and all that. The world is beautifully built, you know.
Yeah.
Amazing themes and all of that, right?
Yeah.
But then he doesn't know shit about drama.
Okay,
I don't know
yeah.
how people speak.
Okay, yeah, along those something like that, I
Yeah.
thought that was a bit problematic at first.
Yeah.
But the good thing about Geralt is Geralt, okay, is that he doesn't have many lines. He doesn't need to have many lines.
A lot of other characters speak also.
Yeah. But the main character, like Henry Cavill's performance, therefore is helped that with Geralt not saying much, he just needs to speak when necessary, which also works. And he has the growl down to a point.
Yeah.
So I was concerned at first with his casting, but then after seeing how passionate he was trying to get this role, and after seeing it now of all 8 episodes, I'm like, okay, this makes sense.
Yeah.
He is meant to be Geralt of Rivia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm okay with this series. Like, I wasn't that blown away by it,
Yeah.
but I was thoroughly entertained.
Okay.
Yeah, by the time when you introduce things like the dragon, and you introduce things like the Strigas, and you introduce things like things that have come from the games also. Yeah, and also the relationship between the main characters. So Gerald, Yennefer, and Siri. Yeah, the three of them, and eventually all those stories do tie into the finale lah. Yeah, so all those kind of things are kind of well done lah. Yeah, but the dialogue does get better, I feel, as the episodes go on. Yeah, but
I do feel, given
need
that
to
I'm
push through
only
I feel.
halfway through, I do feel like it does get better as the episodes go along.
Yeah.
Right. I do think that I'm constantly asking myself, right, that I take a lot of things for granted because I played the games. And I don't know if the world building is as complete for someone who has never played the games.
of course not lah, because you when you're playing the game, you're literally exploring it.
Yeah, you're immersing yourself
You're
into
immersing
it.
yourself
So I don't
into
know
it.
if I had not played the games at all, would it have been confusing?
I was
think-
trying to judge it as a show.
Yeah,
No, as an adaptation.
You
Yeah,
get what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
I feel as though, as gorgeous as it is, and as there's a lot of detail, but I don't know if it's enough detail. I feel like the first three episodes in particular are trying to do too much.
Yeah, they're trying to establish order. They're trying to establish
and with the three timelines
world.
that are ongoing at the same time, and all the
It's
detail
damn
that's kind of
confusing.
flowing in at the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
time, right? It is a lot to take in, and
That's true.
even
That's
then,
true, actually.
I'm informed by the games.
Yeah. Because I know who Yennefer, I know who Siri is, I know.
Exactly.
So it makes it like, okay, yeah, I know where
Yeah,
this is going.
so I mean,
Yeah,
I can kind of understand when people tell me like, oh, I watched like 2 episodes, I have no idea what's going on, and they don't play the games, they haven't played the games.
okay.
So,
I don't think it does as good as a job as, say, people who've never read Watchmen were able to get Watchmen, even as confusing as it was.
Yeah.
That was a masterclass in world building, and this one sort of falls short a bit lah.
yeah,
I agree.
It does,
Yeah.
yeah, especially for the first couple of episodes. I think it's because there's so much world building that needs to be done, and they try to achieve all of that in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
It's only when we actually get to the story itself
Yeah.
that it seems to pick up, right?
I mean, the Watchmen analogy is a lot. Makes sense a lot of sense. Yeah, that's true. I feel that The Witcher did lack a bit of, because we played the games, right?
Yeah.
There was also things that we noticed that were missing.
Yeah,
And like, hey, wait, why didn't they explain that? Like, the audience should know this.
yeah,
But
but
how would they know of about the history of the the witches and all that stuff that weren't really fleshed out as well, lah. Yeah. And we had the added advantage, lah.
yeah,
Of either reading the books or playing the games, lah.
yeah.
All right. I thought I don't know lah. Like
You watched how long again?
40 minutes of
40
the first
minutes.
episode. And then I saw that each episode was 1 hour plus long. I was like,
It's really
I can't do this.
This is going to be painful.
Yeah, I thought, I don't know lah. It's hard for me to judge. I've only seen 40 minutes of the first episode. I thought the dialogue, as you mentioned, was quite awkward, very cringy lah. I didn't felt drawn into the world because it felt very caricature-y of every other fantasy world I've seen.
Yes.
I think in terms of visuals and action, it does look very good. I have
It
to say
does,
that lah. The Witcher,
Like the swordplay and all was actually quite well
fantastic!
done.
Yeah. The Witcher kind of aspires to be this lofty, high fantasy kind of thing. But at about like the 20-minute mark,
Which was the first time you stopped, right?
I kind of realized that I don't know whether you've ever seen The Magicians, but once in a while the characters in The Magicians who get transported into a fantasy world, like a Narnia or Lord of the or Middle Earth type
And they always
fantasy or
make fun
whatever.
of
lah.
all this
And they'll
tropey
spend like
things.
2 or 3 episodes in a mini arc just kind of making fun of all the tropes and the silly characters and the weird names, And at the 20-minute mark, I realized that, this is the type of world that they would so make fun of.
Yep.
And like there will be so much material to make fun of.
Yeah.
And that's when like I stopped. Like I felt like a fantasy fanfic or video game cutscene,
Yeah.
like written by this 13-year-old horny edgelord. It's like, you know what this needs? It needs boobs and it needs blood and it needs violence. That's a story, guys. And kind of like this any human or on a human or emotional level, it felt very like thin. Like
Okay.
I found it hard to like them because they were speaking so awkwardly.
Okay.
It's like a bit. It's as bad as like a backstage like WWE promo, that kind of thing.
It was a bit weird for me because I really missed the Eastern European accents.
Yeah,
There was no
that's
Eastern
actually really
European accent.
Right.
That made things a bit
Because it's kind of that region, lah.
I've also felt the language was quite anachronistic from what I've seen. Like
Yeah.
it really feels like how like people in 2019 would speak
Yes.
if they were like in a Renaissance fair.
Yes.
Yeah, like they try but they can't really like get out like.
That's one of the issues I felt also.
Yeah, the speech structure is a bit
Yeah.
weird. lah. Yeah.
Like Game of Thrones did a very good job of capturing like that medieval talk. Yeah, with
Yep.
some modern inflections, obviously, but that gives you
Well
the
thought out,
immersion.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I felt that this didn't really have lah.
Mm.
It does get better as the episodes do go on lah.
Mm-hmm.
The thing like funny names and all that just gets worse.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean,
So-
I watched a lot of fantasy, so I know it will
God
get
damn,
sillier.
there's some names with like 7 syllables in it.
Yeah.
Later on, like in the episode, like but then it's a dragon's name lah. So dragons usually have that kind of stupid names.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but so on and so forth lah. But The Witcher, I'll give it like a 6
Alright.
out of 10 lah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
still
Isa has
entertaining.
seen like more than half of it. I think you
Yeah.
can give a rating.
Oh man, I think where I'm at right now is just a 5.
Okay. I mean, I can't say lah. I gave up on the show because I
Yeah.
didn't like it. So, but I mean, I don't feel like it's fair for me to give a rating if I haven't seen at least a good portion of the show.
Okay.
So yeah, let's move on to the long-awaited return
Hey.
of Dan Harmon's Rick and Morty. The long wait is over, guys. Rick and Morty is back. Season 4 is
And
here.
now we wait some more.
Now we wait some more. God damn it, damn Harmon. But it's still the most insane, hilarious, and inventive show in this or any other universe.
Yeah.
Within minutes, right, of the show returning, this series blasts through enough sci-fi concepts, like going from a galactic adventure to an alternate reality of fascist squids to a riff on Akira.
That did happen.
This is all within like the first 10 minutes,
Yeah.
and all these small concepts could fuel entire seasons of other less inventive shows.
Yeah.
But even with those like time traveling, multiversal, space-faring hijinks, Rick and Morty's greatest strength kind of remains its refusal to rely on tropes or old tricks. It's always very subversive in its own joke telling, or what it's trying to say of things like heist movies or sci-fi tropes, things like that. It's all very, very smart, but also very funny.
Yep.
There's an LOL factor to Rick and Morty that is present that not in that many comedies these days,
Yeah.
because there are a lot of smart comedies that you kind of like, oh, that's clever, but then I never really like
Burst
have
out
a
laughing,
belly laugh,
Yeah,
when
yeah,
I see like a dragon orgy, for example.
Yeah,
It's like,
that-
then I
that
really
was
laugh out
so
loud, right?
weird.
Yeah. What do you guys think about the latest season of Rick and Morty? Only 5 episodes we're reviewing so far.
Yeah.
Before
Then
the
they
next half continues, right?
Correct. Yeah. So what do you guys think about the first 5 episodes?
Honestly, yeah. God damn, return to form. Like
it's never quite lost.
Yeah, it never lost its
Yeah.
form. It's just the wait, the
Yeah.
2-year wait.
Yeah.
So the return of Rick and Morty is very, very refreshing lah.
Yeah.
The wait was well worth it.
Mhm.
I'm glad that they could settle a lot of the stories during the 2 years. They can, most probably produce like half the episode they're going to produce.
Mhm.
Because there's 70 episodes.
78. Yep.
78 episodes,
Mhm.
So yeah, it'll be fun to see where this goes. But the quality from this 5 was great lah.
Fantastic.
You had a great heist
Parody.
parody.
You had
I love that.
you had a time travel Terminator parody, with
parody.
Snake Alien Society.
Yeah.
There's this 10-minute sequence of just hisses,
Of
which I
course.
fucking love. That was amazing.
And this is because of, and you couldn't help but just be annoyed with Morty
Yeah.
throughout this entire that episode. I was like, oh my god, Morty, this is all your fucking fault.
It's an entire episode about finding the perfect intergalactic toilet.
Yeah.
You know.
that was
Oh,
a
I
good
love that.
episode.
That's actually my favorite episode. From
That
this
was one of
season.
my favorites.
And also a bit of a teardown of Rick as a character.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the end of the episode. lah.
Very, very
Yeah,
well
yeah.
done, my favorite was the dragon sex slut episode.
Dragon Slut.
Oh, slut, dragon slut episode. I thought that
The
was
Voltron, they had the
so
Voltron moment.
funny. Everything from like small. I'm a huge Future fan, so
Mm.
like the Molly Percocet.
Yeah,
thing.
Molly.
So funny, and it went so.
All the way.
You have Future self-titled first LP. He
Yeah.
signed it in Molly and Percocet, and then they actually played the song. I was like going nuts over it. It was so good, and
It
like I've
was.
never seen like Rick and Morty. It has been a lot of things, quite adult actually, but I've never seen it like that filthy.
Yeah.
You
yeah.
know, with the old like dragon coming out with his dildo
The
wand
wand,
from
yeah.
his cum cave. It was-
Masturbation
masturbation cave. Oh my god! From his cum cocoon. It was so. I laugh all the time lah,
Yeah.
and maybe it's because I'm a child lah, but like I found it super funny lah.
Yeah, but it's not. It's still so clever.
Yeah.
Even though it was crude, right?
Yeah.
It was just. It was, the idea of dragon sluts are just amazing.
Dude, yeah, like doing this allegory for empowering women and slut walk and all of that,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
actually getting it right, unlike the kids in Big Mouth,
Yeah,
But that
yeah.
one was done as a
That's
joke as well.
another. That's
Yeah.
another joke.
Yeah, but like in a fantasy allegory, like
Yeah,
it's
it's
so
hilarious.
weird and it's so good too.
yeah,
you know.
it is.
Because I saw like some people reacting to that. It's like, I see. Like maybe if sluts aren't so bad, I guess. Maybe they should be allowed. They should be allowed to masturbate and fuck mastodons or whatever lah.
Yeah, that was weird though. Like, even the slut dragon, that was like the line.
Yeah.
That
That's
was
just you. The finale of the Terminator parody. I mean,
That was hilarious.
so good.
And then they call back to his own snake. Hey, it's Sleepy. He can't stop getting bitten by the snake.
Oh man.
I'm like, God damn, Morty, you're such a moron.
I would have been down for an entire episode on just the snake like society, you know,
I
just like
know.
a bunch of hisses, and you kind of get contextually what they're talking about. It's
Yeah.
like, what is this alien? Who is this?
Just like-
Is this a Cylon? Is this a changeling? I don't.
And the best was that the episode also had what's his name? What's the father's name? Jerry, right?
Jerry, just
Jerry
floating.
had his floating adventure.
Yeah.
You know, or his like adventure with the cat in Florida.
Oh, I love that.
The talking cat.
Yeah.
Jerry's side adventures are actually really good.
Yeah, Jerry with his stupid the shoes lah.
Yeah.
This is Rick's fault again.
I
Rick
mean,
was too
sort-
lazy.
Sort of.
Rick like saved his life,
Yeah.
and then after gave him like shoes so that he would float,
No, the shoes would
would keep him down.
keep him down.
Yeah, so he
was
bounces.
usually buoyant. Yeah.
And then he wanted to play basketball. And the black people thought he was
Because
racist.
he told those black people, "Let me show you my power."
Don't touch the shoe.
I mean, like, concluding thoughts, like Rick and Morty season 4.
Honestly, great job. I cannot wait for the other half
Yeah.
to
Justin
drop.
Roiland, Dan Harmon, killer.
Yeah.
Killer.
Yeah.
I need more.
Yeah, we need more.
I need more. 5
Stat.
episodes is so little.
Yeah,
I know.
2 little episodes.
I mean, from what I've seen, it's an 8 out of 10. They continue
Yeah,
to kill it.
yeah, easily 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10
Yeah.
across the board.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Since we are on animation, let's move into IsaF's anime corner.
Oh yeah.
But this month, we actually were planning to do it last month, but I forgot. My bad.
Yeah.
My bad. I missed it out on the rundown as I was in the middle of quick hits and then I kind of got lost. But we'll be bringing back anime corner. But Isa will not just be talking about the best anime from the past quarter, but also the best animation from the past quarter.
Oh, yes, yes.
So there's a lot to talk about here.
There's a fair bit to talk about.
Yeah. So what's up first?
Okay, let's talk about animation first. Let's get that out of the way. Let's talk about Dr. Seuss's Green Eggs and Ham.
Oh yeah.
Which I enjoyed incredibly.
On Netflix,
so.
right?
Yeah, on Netflix.
Yeah.
I think it's a fascinating look. I mean, I would assume that a great deal of us have grown up reading Dr. Seuss books, and to see that come to life in kind of this long form medium is pretty fascinating. I have to say that the writing is very good and very in line with what you would expect from a Dr. Seuss kind of franchise. And the whole following of Sam I Am and Guy. Oh no, what's his name? Guy.
Yeah.
He is Guy.
I have no idea what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
so we basically follow Guy and Sam from the actual books like Green Eggs and Ham, but this time around it's much more fleshed out. There's a lot of like interpersonal drama. There's a lot of like just like Sam's eventual like he's looking for his mother. You kind of it kind of explains like why he's so fascinated with Green Eggs and Ham. And all in all, like it's a great kind of like buddy comedy with a lot of twists and turns that we don't actually see in the books itself, right? That plays out as thoroughly enjoyable. And I would like to see more kind of like Dr. Seuss stuff as a series instead of just as the movies that we've gotten so far.
Okay.
This was a mini series or a movie?
No, this was a series.
A series. Okay.
Yeah, it was a full-on series. I think it's like 12 episodes in
12
total.
episodes, okay.
And it's about 20 minutes each.
Okay.
And it was really, really fun. I would highly recommend it to anyone who enjoys Dr. Seuss as a kid or wants to kind of revisit that kind of nostalgia, or even anyone who has kids who will like that kind of content. You know, it's really smart. And I think there's a lot of like inside kind of like wink wink nudge nudge adult like jokes that are there that, you know, that are nice, right? Considering that
If you're watching your parents or whatever.
yeah, we were watching our parents and all that. It was really good. Next up, let's talk about She-Ra and the Princesses of Power Season 4.
Season 4, yeah. It ended last month, right?
Yeah, it ended last month.
Series
So
finale?
no,
The season 4
the
ended
season
last
4
month.
ended last
okay,
month.
okay.
I don't think they're going to be done anytime soon.
Okay.
I really,
Yeah.
really don't think so.
Very long up.
So at the end of season 3, there's a huge like kind of time gap as we go forward, and we are going into like the tween kind of teens where all the princesses are now kind of growing up.
Yeah.
Right. Princess Hako has inherited her mother's mantle, so she's now queen.
Yes.
Right, and She-Ra is continually kind of like she continues to grapple with her own identity now that you are no longer kind of bound to this world, right? Like it's gone intergalactic, right?
all in all, which some people have been saying might link up with like a He-Man thing in the future.
If they
but
want to, they could.
if they want to, they could. Yeah.
There are 2 He-Man series currently in production, one live action, one animation.
Yeah, but are
So,
they linked? I don't think so, right?
The animation won't be linked,
Yeah.
but if they wanted to, they could do a third one, which might be overkill. So I think they
yeah,
won't.
yeah, probably not. So I mean, it's kind of like the same adventures, but with a lot more teen drama, which I find
yeah.
pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
But She-Ra continues to be great just because I think there is a lot of character development. Like the character arcs are fully fleshed out for something that I guess most people will consider to be a children's animation.
Children's animation, yeah,
right?
definitely.
There's a lot of great stuff going on in the villains camp. Right, they're constantly getting moments where they get humanized, as strange as that is for aliens. That really fleshes out the kind of the conflict that's going on, both on the battlefield and just like in their private spheres of kind of understanding themselves as they grow older and take on more responsibility.
Yeah.
All in all, I really liked what season 4 has done. I'm really interested to see how they kind of bridge this gap from where they are now to maybe even all the way till they're grown up into adult stage, which would then bring them into like the She-Ra that we used to know as
Yeah.
right. All in all, I'll give it like a 6.5 out of 10.
Yeah.
Very, very enjoyable, very different from the first 3 seasons I think that we've seen. There's a lot to kind of like cover within that, but I'm just going to give it a 6.5 and say that I do recommend it.
Okay.
It's quite good. I mean, not Steven Universe level good, but it's pretty good. Yeah. So that's kind of it for the 2 animations that we're doing.
We're going to anime now?
Now we're going to go into animes, right? So I've broken this up into kind of 2 2 separate things. I'm going to talk about like returning titles that if you guys have dropped off, which I assume some people have, you really need to get back into just because of how good it is. And then, of course, a couple of new titles that I'm really into. The season is ending, all right? And we'll be having a new season in January as well. So, I mean, the bulk of the episodes will be up already. So if you are the type that binges, it's a great time to kind of catch up with all of that. So, as far as returning titles go, My Hero Academia, that this goes without introduction. I think this might be my favorite arc so far.
Overhaul?
Yeah.
Overhaul is such a good arc.
It's such a great arc,
It is a
right?
good arc.
And for those of you who read the manga, I think you'll be more than familiar with that. But to be able to see it in animation is really, really there's some great action pieces here. Some
Sound
great...
like the exploration of Red Riot is I haven't quite seen
Yes.
before. It was very well
It's
done.
very, very well done.
Yeah.
His fights and his kind of character arc over this has been pretty fascinating. I didn't
Yeah.
expect that.
Yeah.
I mean, in
at
the
all.
manga, this is actually the most popular arc, right?
It is the most popular
Yeah.
arc, yes, by
Apparently.
far. But yeah, it's so good. I love the fact that we are starting to see a lot more heroes, and we're not just seeing them like as kind of like side characters, but we are diving a bit deeper, especially characters like Fat Gum, which are really like kind of fascinating backstories
yeah.
about their power and all of that.
Lemillion,
Le
one of the
Million.
big four.
Yeah.
The
Oh, big tree, I'm
The
sorry.
Big Tree, yeah. And all of that is really good. And I think like My Hero has never kind of lost that kind of momentum or consistency over the series, and it continues to be one of the best animes of the decade.
It
Yeah.
is,
Right?
yeah.
And
Without
we
doubt.
will continue. I'm really hoping if you guys have not jumped on the new season yet, please go ahead and do so. I did feel like the last season was a bit of a filler with like the training camp and all of that.
It was oddly structured.
It was
oddly
oddly
structured because
structured.
like the climax, the last 5-6 episodes offered no climax. It almost
Yeah.
felt like a setup for the next season.
Yeah, it was kind of exactly that.
Yeah.
I mean, people who are really into the manga tell me that essentially that that whole portion had to be gotten out of the way just to set up
This season?
where we
Yeah,
are
yeah.
right now with Overhaul, right? So yeah, like a fascinating big bad, with a villain group that are I'm quite sympathetic to, quite honestly.
The
Like
Yakuza
Hasakai,
guys?
yeah, the Yakuza guys.
Yeah.
Like Hasakai has been like a pretty interesting look into that whole idea of like loyalty in the criminal underworld and all of that.
And I like how the Americans came up with the power enhancing drugs.
yeah,
Yeah.
of course,
Yeah.
naturally,
It's like
right?
bloody Americans.
Yeah.
DVDs. It was either them or Russia. Like.
Yeah.
It was bound to be one or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's been great. Please, I mean, it continues to be one of the best things that anime has to offer at the
Nice.
moment. Please catch up with that. Next up, let's talk about Food Wars, the fourth plate.
Wars, yeah.
Mm.
So they are currently in the tournament arc, or the group Shokugeki arc, right? And that's just kind of wrapped up recently. It still continues to be good, still offering like all of the fan service that you want and all of the food porn that you could possibly imagine in animated form. It does bring about a fair bit of drama this time round, given that this is do or die, basically, right? So if they don't win this, basically the story ends. So we kind of all know how it's going to go.
Yeah.
But the steps that they take to reach that point have been highly entertaining. So Food Wars 4th Plate, which is basically season 4, is also one of the returning titles that I really think you should check out.
All right.
Then the Psycho-Pass tree, if you guys are familiar, right? So Psycho-Pass, basically it's a dystopian society, dystopian/utopian society whereby your criminality can be read, right? So basically it's what's the Tom Cruise movie?
Minority Report.
It's basically Minority Report, but in Japan. But this time round, you don't use seers. You basically use technology to kind of read people's criminal element.
Yeah.
The first 2 seasons...
But it's not about a specific crime about to be happening, right? It's
No.
about a person's criminality.
Yes,
So
your
it's-
the criminal element with you has a score.
So it's
Right.
it's a bit different from Minority
Yeah,
Report.
and like the higher your element, they'll just lock you up,
Okay,
basically,
even if
or
you've
they'll
never done
monitor you.
anything,
Yeah,
like- yeah,
they'll
yeah,
just
yeah.
monitor you. So it's been like that. Season 1 and 2 kind of broke open into this crazy kind of conspiracy with a lot of political intrigue going on, and it's a vastly popular anime back when it was released. Psycho-Pass 3 is interesting that we don't follow the main characters anymore. It's kind of like an offshoot where we have again another rookie duo who are situated within the same world and are they bring a kind of fresh look to the whole situation because they've never encountered that. They're fresh out of the academy and they need to kind of like grapple with the moral questions that we've seen the heroes done before in season 1 and 2, but in with fresh eyes and like a totally different disposition. They're very different characters from the heroes that we got before, and it's been pretty good. Like if you enjoyed season 1 and 2, I do think that Psycho-Pass season 3 is worth catching. Just because it offers a wildly, actually, different view on the kind of morality of the system itself, right? And it does fill in a lot of the gaps that we had between season 2 and the movie that eventually came out, in terms of like what has happened since the discovery of the system and all of that. So if you're a big fan of the original 2 seasons, please go check that out as well.
Right.
Now, last but not least for returning titles, I would like to talk about Sword Art Online 3 Season 1 and Season 2. We're currently in Season 2.
Wait, one more time?
Sword
Sword Art Online
Uh-huh.
3
Uh-huh.
is split into Season 1 and Season 2.
Okay.
Because it's a really, really long arc, right? And I think I spoke about it briefly when Season 1 ended earlier in the year, in like March, for one of the anime corners. But right now, it's kind of like the heat of thing. Like, anyone who has watched Sword Art Online and were taken by the first season itself,
Yes.
and realized how season 2 was basically a bunch of filler.
The one when they became fairies?
Well, that was the end of season 1. But then they continued to season 2, which was the gun one.
Oh, Gun Gale.
Gun Gale Online.
Oh, yeah,
like
yeah,
Sinon is
yeah,
a
yeah.
fascinating character,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it was just Kirito like just slashing stuff, right? Like all the time.
He decided to go melee.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
in a gun game.
In a gun game. So basically, like I mentioned before earlier in the anime corner in March, right? We have Kirito who is critically injured, right? Because one of the guys from the murder gangs tries to kill him, injects him with something that damages his brain, and he's been implanted into a world made up entirely of AIs that copy your soul. They are copies of souls.
So,
Like the technology has reached a point where they
okay.
can copy souls into...
Yes, you talked about this last time.
I talked about it last time, right? So the amazing thing right now is that Kirito, and this is not really a kind of spoiler because like at the end of last
Just spoil
season
it,
this
it's
happened. Kirito's out of action. And he is stuck in this AI world where the AIs are getting smarter, right? And now you have these other players on the evil side of things who are coming down and trying to take the AI out of the system so they can use it for their own means lah. And they happen to be US military.
See, I tell you, it's
as
always
well.
America.
Yeah, so like it's a lot of drama, and the fact that you take out your kind of titular character from that has been a joy.
I have to say, like the fact that you don't have this
You don't have
incredibly
this
overpowered,
OP,
right,
Kirito lah.
incredibly lucky Kirito who's there all the time.
Kirito is such a Mary Sue.
Yeah.
Oh yes, absolutely, right. Has made it a lot more enjoyable in this particular season. I do feel in a couple more episodes, because it's still ongoing, they will probably rectify that. His friends are coming into the game to save them, as well as like 30,000 American MMORPG players have been invited on the other side. So it's becoming like a huge brawl in this very gritty, very grotesque fantasy world.
I guess we would have to join the Japanese, right?
I guess so, because like
Yes.
server times
Yeah.
and all of that, they actually do address that in one of the episodes. Yeah,
that's
it's
how I
quite funny.
figured also.
But essentially, they're asking a lot of very, very deep questions, especially about the singularity, about artificial intelligence, about the nature of souls and whether or not that can be digitized, whether or not an AI can have a soul. They do address all of these things in the quiet moments of the anime, which I think are brilliant, right? Because that's a lot of what they tried to do in season 1 of SAO. So please, highly recommend it for season 3, season 3 part 1 and part 2. I think that as far as all the sci-fi anime going on right now, I mean, sci-fi fantasy, you can see it a couple of ways. Sword Art Online is asking important questions, and I think like it's worth watching just because of that. I mean, the production value continues to be amazing, and it's still enjoyable and it's incredibly fun.
Okay.
So yes, for returning titles, that's about it. I'm going to boil down my recommendations for new titles basically to one. One series and then one OVA and one movie.
Okay.
Right. So I'm really, really into this series that started this season called No Gun Life.
No Gun Life.
No
That
Gun
sounds
Life.
familiar.
Right. So I wasn't sure about this anime at first because in the promotional material, you see the protagonist and he has a gun for a head.
For a hit.
Yes, his whole head is a gun.
Okay.
Right. He's basically a walking gun.
Okay.
Right. So it's a far future kind of dystopia where you have these heavy body modifications that make people into extendeds. And this particular character that we follow, Inoue is a overextended who was created during the war. So you kind of like learn more about the war later on and all of that. And he's basically a fixer, or in the context of the anime, he's a resolver who like helps to solve problems for other extendeds who are living there. Like extension mods are a huge thing that you kind of see kind of everywhere.
Okay.
Right. And it's very, very commonplace. So it starts off as a procedural until you meet some of the other side characters that come along, and then it starts to change into a more like overarching thing. Very interesting world building, very well fleshed out characters. The artwork is gorgeous and the music is dope. And I don't think I need to kind of like, if you're into kind of like Blade Runner-esque things, this will be right up your alley. If you're into kind of like procedurals as well, this will be right up your alley, because he's kind of like private eye / fixer / all of these things. There's a lot of like seedy underworld things going on, a lot of deals being made, and a lot of like bigger political intrigue kind of floating on top of that. It's good stuff. Good
Nice.
stuff. No Gun Life.
No
Yeah.
Gun Life.
No Gun Life. Yeah.
Well, where does the title come from? Because the guy is a literal gun.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So I don't know how it actually ties up. We haven't reached the point where they address
Oh, you don't know yet,
that.
lah. Okay.
Yeah, but like his head is a gun, and I thought just like what in the world, like this is some gimmicky shit.
I've seen weirder things.
Yeah, that's true. So like that was really good.
I've seen a guy like his body is full of cameras on My Hero Academia. I mean, I'm like, I can buy this.
You can totally look into that. So I really, really like it. I think like it's one of the best things that are out right now. And in terms of series, the rest of the series that I kind of want to recommend last month have kind of dropped off for me as I've continued them. So I'm leaving them out. I want to talk about Blade of the Immortal. Blade of the Immortal, which is also Amazon actually. Amazon's doing Blade of the Immortal, and I think it's like one episode every month over the last couple of months. So I've been keeping up with that more or less. Wow, it's really good. The animation is pretty mind blowing. Although the huge gap between all of that does take away from the enjoyment of it, just because I can't really remember what happened last the last episode.
Like comics, lah.
Yeah, like comics, exactly. Very, very heavily inspired by Kurosawa, and like there's a lot of like kind of flashbacks, a lot of flash forwards, and all of that. But overall, just the vibe and feel and the grittiness of it is very, very gorgeous, very beautiful, and very enjoyable. For people who don't mind a bit of like Japanese art house.
Okay.
Yeah. And the last one that I kind of really enjoyed is this short film called Black Fox.
Black Fox.
Yeah, it's basically about a girl whose grandfather is a ninja and her father is a scientist. And basically they get killed and she becomes a ninja with like lots of cool tech. Yeah. And like that's basically it. Like the animation is cute. The action sequences are really good. The CG is really good as well. But it's just like a kind of fun little story about a girl that's trying to reconcile like kind of old world values from the legacy of her family, as well as like her father's desire for her to be someone who is, you know, of the modern world. Right,
scientist.
Scientist. Yeah. So she has to kind of like grapple with all those like issues of identity while trying to seek revenge / investigate who are responsible for her father and grandfather's death. And yeah, it just plays out as a kind of like really cute, if somewhat serious, investigation / revenge flick.
Okay.
Yeah. So she's got like machine dog and machine bird, and they kind of help her out with this whole thing. I was quite taken by the art style, and the action sequences are really, really good. So
where can you find this?
Black Fox is
it a Netflix thing?
No, it's not a Netflix thing. I think it's on. You can find it on Funimation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, or Crunchyroll. I believe those two platforms have it. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. So that's basically it for me from Anime Corner. I think like since this is going to be the first of the decade, I'm just going to quickly say that My Hero Academia, Demon Slayer, and Fire Force might be some of the best anime that have come out this decade.
God damn, Fire Force is good.
Yeah.
Right.
And all three like kind of debut. Well, not My Hero lah, but the other two kind of debuted
this year.
recently.
Yeah, they were this year,
Yeah.
right? So again, like another one where like last minute you kind of that. Like Demon Slayer cannot be more highly recommended, and Fire Force is still ongoing, but so far it's been a while, right? And I really, really like it.
Nice. Since we are moving on from anime or animation corner this month, like I'm gonna switch a bit of my quick hits, and I'm gonna talk about I Lost My Body first, considering it's a French animation. It's an independent movie, and it concerns it's set in it opens in a Parisian laboratory. A severed hand escapes its unhappy fate and sets out to reconnect with its body. Hence the title, I Lost My Body. And during a tense and thrilling escapade across the city, the lost limb fends off pigeons and rats and trains and cars to reunite with its owner, a pizza boy named Naufel. Its memories of Naufel and his love for a librarian named Gabriel provides him answers about what might have caused the hand separation and clues about where to find him. And kind of this is this poetic backdrop for a possible reunion between the hand, the boy, and the girl. This was a very deeply affecting and moving tale, and one of the most creatively animated features I've seen this year. I'm almost convinced that it's probably going to be the big Disney stuff for best animated feature at the Oscars this year.
I wouldn't be surprised.
And it's a surreal journey that follows kind of a dream logic. And its tone is very gentle and melancholic. Essentially, this French animation is this quite existential journey about the struggle to find beauty in a world that forces us to leave parts of ourselves behind. That's the kind of the metaphor. And about this stirring evocation of a longing that we all have to be made whole. We don't know what's missing in us, but we want to be made whole. And I think it elicits that very well. I think Isa watched this as well.
Yes, I did. I mean, like exactly what you said. One of the saddest things I've seen. Recently, as far as like, kind of animation goes. I don't think there's anything more to add to that. Like, I really enjoyed it, and I do think it's going to do very well once award season comes in. It's an 8 out of 10 for me.
Yeah,
It's really, really good.
It's an 8.5 for me, like. And considering like its biggest challenges are like Toy Story 4, which is good, but I mean you kind of seen Toy Story already and stuff like that.
Exactly.
So I think this might actually have a really good shot for being the best animated feature at the Oscars this year. Then you can find it on Netflix.
Yes, you can.
Next up, another thing that you can find on Netflix. It is a Senegalese ghost love story. Set against the backdrop of the African migrant crisis. It is a very sensual, aching, and unpredictable film, and it's a cinema at its most stunning and moving. It's set in Dakar, and Atlantics follows Doom lovers Sulaiman and Ada. Sulaiman is an exploited construction worker who decides to leave for the ocean, on a boat in the ocean to search for a better future. Meanwhile, Ada is a woman betrothed to a man she doesn't love, but she's in love with Sulaiman. The couple is kind of besieged on two oppressive fronts, modern capitalism on his part and archaic patriarchal tradition on her part. When the news that Sulaiman's boat had been hit by a massive storm, he's presumed dead. But his spectre sort of, or spirit, or whatever it is you want to call it, sort of lurks, eager to reconnect with Ada. It's a very hazy, seductive, and magic realist mood piece. It's very atmospheric and oblique. It's like a mystical dreamscape of a haunted romance grounded by good political dimensions and internal anguish by the actors. It's beautiful and tragic, and Atlantics is such an engrossing, hypnotic dream. I really, really loved it. It's 9 out of 10. Yeah, you should. It's actually in. Well, I guess the article will be out by now. It's actually like in my top 10 for best films of 2019. You can read it on Potwire actually. Then now I'm gonna go on to stuff like I didn't enjoy so much.
Okay, go ahead.
The third and final season of Runaways, like its previous seasons, has tons of interesting elements, but it never quite coheres into a satisfying whole.
It's cancelled now.
Yeah, it was cancelled before the season came out. You know, Marvel TV is dead. You know, it's been incorporated
into MCU,
into Marvel Studios. But you know, like Runaways always had so much promise for me.
It did,
and it always had like parts of it that I loved.
It did,
but it just never quite cohered. Like,
okay.
It's a shame, you know. I like so many individual parts of the show. It's just like poor cooking with solid ingredients. It's kind of this analogy I keep going back to.
They like boiled it too long.
Something like that, you know, on the plus side, the season is far more action-packed than previous seasons. The teens are battling against the magistrate, you know, the evil aliens from space, and the evil body snatching alien family that was introduced in season 2. It also introduces a new big bad in the form of Sorceress Morgana, played by Elizabeth Hurley. Delicious performance, really like it. But for a show that was so afraid to embrace its superhero aspects in season 1, I'm glad it's come to the point where these kids can use their power to fight like wizards and monsters and aliens. You know, it's like it's a full superhero show now. With the show's impending end, there also comes a greater sense of stakes because more than a few people died this season of Runaways, in a manner that suggests that they aren't coming back. Also, the long-awaited crossover with Cloak and Dagger was pretty cool. Seeing them team up, it's a bit sad because both of these shows are cancelled now. And given their potential, I would have liked to see more from Cloak and Dagger and less from Runaways. On the downside, one of the most frustrating aspects of the season is how it is less character-driven than season 1 and 2. It felt like there was so much of a focus on plot and what they wanted to get and where they wanted to go to. There wasn't enough time for the team to interact in unique ways. A fun but uneven end to a series that never quite lived up to its early promise. It's a 5.5 out of 10.
5.5?
Yeah.
Damn.
Next up, I'm going to be talking about For All Mankind. It's actually For All Mankind NC.
Okay.
It's a 2 new genre series from a brand new streaming service called Apple TV. First up, you know, it's an alternate history called For All Mankind from Battlestar Galactica creator Ronald D. Moore. It imagines an alternate history where Russia beat America to the moon in the space race. In Moore's vision, the defeat spurs American history down a new path, causing the Nixon administration to double down on our journey to the stars. When Russia adds insult to injury by launching the first woman to the moon too, just a few short months after their cosmonaut touches down, For All Mankind follows what might have been if America had invested as much into the continued space exploration and growth of the programs that we did in getting there in the first place, you know. So instead of just like investing in that first moon landing, you know, what if they actually continued to progress the space program to the point where it's very developed, you know. At that point, it just felt like we want to get to a man on the moon and we're done.
Yeah, I mean, it was the whole Star Wars, what they called Star Wars politics.
And following that big what if of an inciting incident, For All Mankind explores how it would affect the American experience from the perspective of NASA's astronauts, engineers, their families, and the politicians making policy around these new scientific advances. It's a very loving and optimistic look about what might have happened had we been compelled to double down on space exploration. And the series regularly jumps months and occasionally years in pursuit of exploring how that change in focus and funding could have altered our course in history. And for better or for worse, For All Mankind is kind of determined to play it straight, almost too straight. In fact, it might be the show's biggest disadvantage. For All Mankind takes itself very seriously and moves very slowly, despite the time jumps. Its methodical pacing, showing the cultural shifts down to the minute detail. And the thing is, right, it's rarely surprising, the results, especially in the first half of the first season. There are stand-up moments and fantastic performances, and there's no getting around the fact that For All Mankind is essentially Mad Men in NASA, charting the rise of these mostly unwelcome women into the workplace. As far as workplace dramas goes, the series has its moments of sharp, incisive character drama carried by a generally excellent cast, but despite the old history, we've kind of seen all of this done before. It isn't really fascinating extrapolation in the way that Watchmen did. It's all very slow, it's all very derivative, and while the series' initial struggles with some exposition and explanation and subplots drags it down a bit, it does pick up a bit of steam once it finds its focus, especially in the back half of the season, where the characters and their overlapping arcs start to come to life. But it is a bit too slow, a bit too understated, a bit too derivative for me to fully recommend. So that's why I'm giving it 5 out of 10.
Okay.
Yeah. Finally, I'm gonna.
Do you really want to do this?
Let's not. Fuck it. We're at the end, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about C. It's a post-apocalyptic sci-fi show created by Eastern Promises screenwriter and Peaky Blinders showrunner Stephen Knight. Stephen Knight also recently did another movie that I reviewed this year. It's the Serenity. I'm not talking about Joss Whedon's Serenity.
You're talking about the boat, the fishing,
Matthew McConaughey. Oh, spoiler alert for the end.
Fuck it.
Yeah,
It's a stupid movie.
It turns out that they were in a game, a fishing game. Yeah, so he's come back for a show that stars Jason Momoa as a character called Baba Voss,
who's blind. Spoiler alert.
The warrior leader of the Alkeni village is set generations after humanity lost the sense of sight, as Hadi mentioned, through a near extinction level outbreak. The series drops us in the midst of another historical change for the human race when Baba Voss's adoptive twins are born with sight, and thus the potential to upend society's entire belief structure.
Yep.
What would human society be like without sight is an interesting premise, as is the idea that people with vision are essentially superpowered in a world of blindness.
Yeah.
Ironically, the show is also visually spectacular. It is filled with impressive battle sequences and a dystopian future world that's rendered with breathtaking cinematic production value. It looks more gorgeous than The Witcher. I do have to say that.
Okay.
It's also downright weird and goofy. Weirdly, like it's kind of this weird contrast between this very high-end production Game of Thrones-esque visuals with like Xena and Hercules like storytelling from the 90s.
Oh, no.
You know, it's a high-concept drama with a tonal imbalance. You know, in just that tone lah. It's like, is this Xena or is this Game of Thrones? I don't know. It's both. Other than the aesthetics and the tone, there is a near total lack of character development. Like nothing.
Okay.
There's no character development. The only development is like, oh, this guy can see. Wow.
The baby, right?
The baby, yeah. So you can't really invest emotionally in any of the characters.
So it's like Children of Men, but blindness.
With blindness, yeah. It's not only hard to invest emotionally, it's hard to invest intellectually, because despite the potential of its premise, the show has no idea what to say. Like it's politically or socially, it just has. I don't know what themes. I don't know what social issues I want to tackle. So let's just have blind people fight blind people.
Yeah, the blindness is not just literal; it's also metaphorical.
I know. Yeah. It's like yeah. Okay, cool. It's also very tropey. It plays with dystopian cliches, which is kind of seen a million times before.
Done better.
So I won't recommend this.
Okay.
It's a 4.5 out of 10.
That's not too bad still.
So yeah, but I mean, considering Runaways was like 5.5, For All Mankind was 5.
And this is 4.5, okay.
I mean, these are all like okay shows.
Yeah, but you're not gonna miss anything not watching it lah.
I recently plugging my Popeye articles. I also recently did like the 50 best shows of 2019, and the fact that if you looked at my honorable mentions, which is made up of 28 shows, like narrowing. If you think you have 50, I thought like top 50 of the year would be so easy to do. So many spaces.
Yeah.
The fact that I had to leave out 28 shows that I dearly loved, shows that there's so much quality out there.
Also,
So much-
Hidzir has a lot of things to watch lah.
Sure, yeah, but there's so many things that are 8 out of 10 or above. That like why waste time on 6 out of 10 or 5 out of 10 or 4 out of 10. So yeah, I mean, think of it like I talked so glowingly about the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
It didn't make my top 50 of the year.
Yeah.
I love Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
It didn't make
It didn't
top
make
50.
my top 50 of the year. It's so crazy that all these great shows cannot make a top 50.
Yeah.
That's what peak TV is now.
Yeah, I agree.
You fucking YouTube has streaming, fucking Facebook has streaming,
That's true.
Netflix and Amazon and Apple and Disney Plus and DC Universe.
That's true.
Etc. Etc. Fucking like DBS Sparks has streaming.
If they went the sci-fi route, we would definitely review it.
We would have to, right?
Yeah, we have
Just
to.
out of sheer fascination.
DBS Sparks.
DBS Sparks, guys.
It
check
already
out.
has a sci-fi name, Sparks.
Okay.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, sure. There is that one show that we keep seeing in trailers in
Yeah,
cinemas, right?
yeah,
I don't even know what it's called.
Which one?
The DBS Park show.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know what it's called.
it's called DBS Sparks.
That's the title.
The
of
title is
show?
Sparks.
Oh.
Yeah, it's dbs.com/Sparks.
I thought Sparks was the name of the streaming service.
No, Sparks is the show.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
All right, guys. We'll come back next month to talk about more DPS Park. No lah. Stay tuned.
tuned.
Next month is actually quite big. Also, we have
It
very
is.
very small number of titles.
Yeah.
But they're all big titles. I think we're all going to be talking about all 5 parts of Crisis on Infinite Earths.
We are.
Which kind of combines every DC TV and movie property.
It has
you've
been
ever
amazing
seen.
so far.
I wouldn't say it's amazing, but it's fun in the way that the CW shows have always been fun.
Yeah.
Like they know what they are.
They just lean in.
They don't pretend to be anything
Yeah.
loftier, and they just like, this is fun. This is a
Yeah.
cartoon. Let's just
Let's
go
go
watch.
with it.
Let's just go
Yeah.
watch Kevin Conroy fight like Tom Welling or whatever.
Exactly.
I think me and Hardy will be covering the first season of Harley Quinn.
We are.
Has been a really good show. Harley Quinn ended up in my like top 20 of best shows of 2019
Because
so,
of the craziness.
and like the humor is just
Yeah.
LOL funny like Rick
It's
and Morty
LOL
is.
funny, yeah.
So you already kind of know how rated. Me and IsaF will be talking about the Steven Universe future. The first and probably last season of Steven Universe because
As far as we know.
Rebecca Sugar keeps calling this show as the epilogue, but I don't know how many seasons the epilogue will be. And then in Quick Hits, I'll be talking about Dracula, the new Dracula show from the creators of Sherlock. I'll be talking about the new Grudge movie that's coming out that is getting surprisingly good reviews.
Really?
Weirdly enough, yeah.
Korean?
No, America. Yeah. I'll be talking about the new Shaun the Sheep movie. I wanted to talk about it this month, but I'm going to push it. Shaun the Sheep Farmageddon is a Wallace and Gromit spin-off if you've ever seen Shaun the Sheep.
That should be good.
It's a new anime called Ride Your Wave, which has been out for a couple of months. I recently just watched it, but I'm going to push my review. I'm going to be talking about the new season of Infinity Train, a new comic by N.K. Jemisin, who wrote the Broken Earth trilogy, the one that I really loved so much. She's writing a new Green Lantern
Not
book.
Wandering Earth, huh?
Not Wandering Earth, the Broken Earth. She's writing a new Green Lantern book called Far Sector.
Okay.
And I'm sure there'll be more stuff that pops up. But
Alright.
till then, Happy New Year, guys.
Yeah.
New Year.
This has been Hidzir.
I'm Hardy.
I'm IsaF.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.